Scrap Pile Podcast. I'm here today with Clay Ricks, man. Had him drive all the way up from Duncan, and we dang sure appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Had a little bit of a drive to get up here.
Yeah, thank you guys for inviting me up here. Glad to be here.
I'm glad you said yes, man. I was like, I'm just going to send this guy a message on Facebook Messenger like a real skeevy weirdo and see what happens. He goes, yeah, let me ask the wife, man. I think I can do that. All right, cool, man.
City. Yeah.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, super cool time, man. And Clay and I have a little experience, man. He helped me out at the Oklahoma City Thunder deal we did an aviation night up there one night, and he helped me out with that. It was super cool. He and his wife both, so. It was a super cool deal. It was a lot of fun. I mean, it was a little stressful, but it was still fun.
It worked out good.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, super cool.
So, Clay, tell us about yourself.
Well, let's see. What do you want to know?
What do you fly?
Well, I primarily like to fly 3D. That's 3D giant scale is where most of my interest is. But I'll fly a little bit of anything. Mostly a little bit of foamies and dabble in helicopters. But that's pretty much it.
So here's an argument we have every show. How do you feel about electrics?
I love them.
Yeah.
No, I'm all about this. If it flies, I'm a bit interested, and typically electric and gas are my ones to go to. That's my go-tos.
I don't know. See, this guy always beats me up about the electric thing. I love electrics. I'm just not going to have them. So, I mean, if they work great for you, they work great for what you're doing, hey, more power to you.
But you're at the field. He's like, hey, man, let me get a pull on that real quick.
Yeah.
You put a battery, you have another battery for that?
Absolutely, man.
So my take on it is there's certain sizes that just kind of lend themselves to a particular power system that seems to be the best. And my take on it is your smaller foam airplanes especially, but your smaller, even balsa airplanes, they just lend themselves to be electric more readily or more easily. Let's say it that way.
Well, man, it's not like nitro. You're not having to clean them up after a day of flying. You can charge 4 or 5 batteries, go out to the field, have a good time, throw it in the car, and you're ready to go.
Hey,
it's
and
easy.
I'll tell you that is the one spot that it is. Watching you, dude, you drive a little Honda Civic.
Yep.
I mean, great little car, whatever. Dude, he takes this little 10-size Valiant and puts it in the car. Doesn't even take it apart.
No.
Got like 10 batteries charged up, hands the radio around, blah, 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 and you're like, yeah, I'm over here, man. Dude, hold
got a
that.
third scale D7.
Yeah.
I got 8 people helping me carry wings and
Yeah,
pick this thing up and flip it over.
It's a 30-minute ordeal to get it put together and took apart.
Which I absolutely love that airplane.
Well, you have a little hand in that airplane,
Well,
so
a little bit.
I get it.
And I mean, flying it flies great and everything like that. Sometimes I'm just like a hit it and quit it kind of thing. I want to get in there and I want to rip a few packs and go home. Now on the weekend, something like that's great.
Right, absolutely. Yeah,
Got a little more time.
Right. And again, I don't not like them, but I don't have a spot for
I just
them.
like
I'll fly
raspberry.
yours.
Clint's a naysayer.
So
And Larry likes to fire him up. I
He's
love
a
every minute of it.
naysayer, yeah.
where I kind of go with it is like you said, time. How much time do you really have?
Right.
How much effort are you wanting to put out? Because there's some days that you want to go fly, but you really don't want to spend that 15, 20 minutes unloading, getting the tail hold out, getting the gas can out, and all that business. You just want to go out and fly a few packs, have a little bit of time, visit with your buddies, and go on about your way.
Man,
And
you said it right there. Visit with your buddies sometimes is the best thing.
Yep.
Yeah. So electrics, they have their place for them. And like I say, the smaller airplanes, I love having a wide variety. And, and then once you get up, in my opinion, once you get up to the 50, 70 cc air range, the upfront cost of electric and the flight time, there's a point at which it makes sense, in my opinion, to go to gas and to get away from electric. There's certain older airframes out there that I know a lot of guys go about converting them to electric or whatever, but they're just not meant for that, and they don't work well for it, meaning they don't have battery hatches. They are heavy. There's a multitude of things that could potentially come up that it makes sense to make this a glow airplane or helicopter or whatever it may be. So in my opinion, they all have their place. It just depends on what you like to fly. I typically don't want the hassle of glow. I do own some. I just don't like the hassle of it. and gas and electric work really well for me. The other thing too is the power to weight ratio in the small electrics,
Right.
like in the 60-inch balsa
Ballistic.
planes.
It's ridiculous.
Ballistic.
Yeah, you can't match that with anything.
No.
And
not for
I
the-
will say, once you get that bug in you, it's really hard to get loose from that just awesome instant power.
Larry has a little Timber X, the green one with the big control
Yeah.
surfaces, and I guarantee you, dude, that little dude just, it's like a homesick angel, man. Just what?
Oh, yeah.
Off she goes.
Yeah.
It's a blast to fly.
Yeah.
But the regular timber, the red one was
Yeah,
a blast too.
I've got, and I'm also the electric. My side of it, I'm building the Timber XL, the 110,
Oh, yeah, the Timber 110.
and
Yep.
I'm doing electric. It's gonna be electric,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll see. Let's see. Look at him.
Man, I'm indifferent. I got into this because of drones. Like, I mean, that was it. Because I'm a photographer by trade, and when they told me I could have a camera that flies, yes, please, I'll take one. And then going out to the lake and seeing you guys fly, and I'm like, man, taking pictures and stuff like that. Next thing you know, I'm showing up with an airplane.
Some of my favorite pictures this guy has taken.
Oh yeah.
You know, the blue D7 against the water tower down there at the end and stuff like that. I mean, that's a whole lot of fun in itself. Is the pictures. So
I enjoy that as much as I do anything else. Well, man, it's hanging out, you know.
absolutely.
And then
You can't plan a couple time. You
That's
just
it.
can't do it.
Yeah.
Can't.
I will say one of the most awesome videos I've ever seen occurred a couple years back down at Ice House. One of the guys was flying a 35% yak, I believe it was a pilot, and he's out doing some really awesome low rolling Harriers. And one of the FPV guys that did the racing quads, he's out there chasing him, and he was getting some really up close shots. I mean, if you've done FPV at all, you realize like it looks like you're far away, but you're not. You're much closer than you are.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah,
I'm thinking to
like your
myself,
rearview
like,
mirror, man.
holy
Yeah.
cow, this drone is right up next to this 35%er, and it was a really awesome video. But it also
Kind of
was
made you
really-
pucker up just a little bit. You're like, wow, he's right there. Chop a wing off. Or do
yeah,
something
you know,
crazy.
or like, wow, this guy can really fly. You know, I think there's a misconception that multi-rotors are just this easy thing to fly.
No.
And I will say, I have a Mavic Pro. That thing, my daughter, she's 8, she can fly that. It's super easy to fly.
Oh, yeah.
But the racing drones are not.
Not
I've
so
tried.
much.
I've tried it, and
no.
I'm terrible at
Man,
it.
it's
I've tried the FPV, and you think strapping on those goggles, it's just like just go where you're looking. Yeah, yeah, it didn't work out too well for me.
No,
so.
those
I like
guys.
to describe it as a difficult video game with consequences.
Yeah. The good thing about those quads is that I've
Man, they're pretty well
I've bounced
bulletproof.
mine
Oh, yeah, they're
into
pretty
the ground
they're
so
pretty
hard it
resilient.
bounced back up in the air 20 feet.
Yeah.
Get
Yeah.
the mud out of the
Yeah, I'm
rotors
out.
and
Y'all
go right
have
back
fun.
up.
I did hit the side of a building one time when I was diving it, which we're not going to say what building, and it didn't really happen.
Eef.
But it was rather tall, and I clipped the side of the building, and it went all the way to the ground. And concrete is not kind. Concrete is not kind to those things.
Doesn't have anything to do with that video I've seen, does it?
No, it actually wasn't that building. That building's much taller.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
But here, my second income is flying a drone. So I mean,
Yep.
you know, I understand all aspects of it. So,
Yeah.
but at the end of the day, I'm not going to do it. Man, if I'm going to the flying field, I'm gonna either have to put a glow driver on it or start it.
Well, that's another deal about the nitro stuff.
Well,
And in
when's the
this
last time you
area-
saw me fly something nitro?
Well, right, but I mean, in this area, it's getting to the point where
$30
yeah, it's
a
kind of
gallon.
it's $30 a gallon. It's kind of high.
if you can find it.
Well, did you guys see that Byron? They're shutting their fuel line down.
Yeah,
Really?
that happened. What, yesterday? I think.
I think it was yesterday. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That
So now we're
Byron
down
shut
to like Morgan's and maybe VP. I'm not sure who else is out there.
Yeah. What even the home mix stuff, even the nitro's getting
Right, it's
close
out
to
of control.
impossible to even get.
Right.
You
But
know.
so here a couple of years ago, my club, we had a lot of guys flying glow, and so we all got together and we decided. It was right whenever Mike was talking about shutting his hobby shop down, and so we all got together and we said, "Hey, let's reach out to a couple fuel companies and see what they'll offer to us and make a large bulk purchase. We'll pay for it out of the club account and all that business." So I reached out to Byron's and Morgan, and we ended up buying from Morgan. But one of the interesting things that I discovered while talking to Morgan's sales rep is that all of the, I believe it was the nitromethane, I don't think it was the methanol, I believe it was the nitro, most of it come from China.
China, yeah,
Right,
the
yeah,
nitro,
it's not
yeah.
from here.
It's not from the U.S.
And especially with what's going on right now,
Yeah.
that might be.
Right, might be a problem.
Yeah. I don't know. We got a guy at the club that mixes it, and I don't know what he has on hand that's
Yeah,
available
I
to mix, but
We're gonna find out.
if you're wanting to fly, low, you almost better be a week in advance trying to round up if you need fuel.
I'm
because
just gonna go to the gas station and get some gas, guys.
And that's
Yeah.
So, speaking of your home club, tell us about where you fly.
I fly at Chisholm Trail RC Squadron in Duncan, America. Duncan, Oklahoma. We're actually out by Duncan Lake, and we got a 350-foot by 40-foot paved runway. We've got a pretty nice awning area with a little bit of lighting and some electricity out there for the diehard electric guys. And,
wow, that's nice. So no generators really needed, huh?
no generators needed.
We need that.
Yeah. No, pretty much everyone out there, we actually got a little bit of grief about that in the beginning, and but it's really amazing how much you utilize it once you have it. So, but yeah,
You got grief about having electricity?
yeah, we had a few guys that wasn't fond of spending the money at the time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Y'all are probably using so little. It's probably the minimum charge.
It's the upfront cost, buying the panels and putting in the receptacles, and it's not cheap. That was a major investment at our field, but there again, we've enjoyed it so much.
Oh, that'd be so nice to have.
Yeah, especially if you got a long-term deal with your landowner or whatever you're doing, where you're not going to get thrown out, or the city come in on top of you or whatever.
Are y'all at the city lake, or you?
We are.
Okay.
We're actually on the south bank of the city property. So the city of Duncan owns, I believe it's 4 lakes, and we're at the one. We're right next to the gun club. Actually, out where we're at, we've got 2 gun clubs that are like membership based. We have another one that's you pay to use it every time you go. It's not a club. It's not a membership or anything like that. So we got those 3, and then we've got the equestrian club, and there's just a bunch of stuff out there that the city's facilitated for everyone, and set this land aside, and we're able to lease it from them every year. And I believe the club has been there since sometime in the 80s.
Okay.
Way before my time.
It's established then. It's not something that y'all are just trying to get started or anything like that.
No.
You always want to make it grow. But
yeah, it's been there for, like I said, way longer than me. I believe the runway was put down in like 97. So it's been there for a while.
That's
but we're
super
always
cool.
spending, and we're always working. We do projects at least a few times a year, trying to make it better, make it bigger, better, and more fun, more what do you call it?
User friendly.
User friendly, making it more welcoming for other people.
right on.
I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah.
Coming up here soon. We
2 weeks from tonight.
A week from this. Is it 2?
Well, yeah, 2 weeks from yesterday.
Yes, 2 weeks. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so about 2 weeks from right now, we'll be getting the night flyers started up, basically.
yeah.
That's
All
going to be a
right.
good time. I'm not going to bring nothing to fly at night. I'm just going to sit back and watch, have a cold beer.
His night. Yeah, he's not. He don't have a real good record with night fly.
Well, he says that, but I've got something at home that's getting LEDs on it, and I
Right,
bet he's going to be like, let me
Whoa.
fly that.
I have a pretty good record with a night flyer, just not his. It was not right.
Oh, I thought you had a Zaggy experience too at Jono.
You have the Zaggy hanging on your wall.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean it's solid foam. You can't destroy it. But
Well, I didn't crash it.
oh, you didn't crash it?
No, the lights just went out.
Same thing happened to me, right?
Hey, yours is hanging on the wall. Mine's still on my neighbor's roof.
Yeah, right. So
Hey, while we're at this point,
let's get
Oh
to this.
yeah,
Man,
man, we're forgetting a very
oh,
important
yeah.
part here.
man, what we're drinking tonight is Larry picked us up some Pabst Blue Ribbon hard coffee. So this is what we're drinking tonight and trying
Just what
out.
we need, a little caffeine.
Well,
Oh,
I
yeah.
saw it, and it could go either way. So let's see. Let's
check it
let's
out.
all have it. I feel like it needs to be shaken or something. you
No,
know?
don't do that.
I
It'll
know
freaking
that.
go everywhere.
It smells like a Tootsie Roll.
I was going to say, it kind of smells like hot chocolate or something to me.
Boy, here we go.
There
This
ain't
is gonna do one of two things, gentlemen.
Man, there ain't
Oh man,
that's easy to drink.
man, it's
ain't
not
no-
carbonated like I thought it
Boy,
would be.
right on
No.
down the hatch.
Much different than I expected.
Oh yeah, me
That-
too.
I'm not a coffee guy, so I was kind of
Well,
He
it-
said,
a little
"Ooh,
bit
what are
like-
you guys doing to me here?"
yeah.
it's like
Dude.
it's like a Starbucks. Or something.
Yes, it is. I'm thinking this would be very bad to have in the house in the morning, man. This is day drinking material right
Man,
here.
that's a hell of a day drink start right there. I promise.
Golly.
I'm,
I wonder if I'll get in trouble for having one of these first thing in the morning.
You know, if you put it in one of those Yeti glasses or something, man, I don't think anybody'd question you.
Oh, I'm in it 2 weeks at the Fun Fly.
I was thinking. I was thinking about in daily life. Yeah.
No, I'm gonna not do
Shockingly,
that.
tasty.
Transportation industry just wouldn't. Nah, let's not do that.
Right.
I'm really
There are some
impressed with
benefits
that.
for working for yourself.
Pretty impressed.
I'm pretty impressed. It doesn't taste like
Well,
beer or anything.
I have
though.
to admit, I didn't have
No.
high hopes being
Well,
it said Pabst on it. I mean,
Oh,
Man.
coming from the guy that brought Coors
there's
So,
nothing wrong with
tonight.
So growing up, I never, like I said, I never heard of Pabst. It wasn't a popular drink where I grew up at. And when I went to college, I had a professor that was, he was a Vietnam veteran. He had flew Hueys in Vietnam. I think he did 2 tours over there. And anyway, great guy, awesome stories, best stories that I've ever heard, really. And he always said, I have a soft spot in my heart for Ham's beer. And he said, all of us out where we were at, they were stationed pretty good ways out in the jungle. They called it, what's Robin Hood? What was their forest? I can't recall their name.
Sherwood Forest.
Yeah,
Sherwood,
that's
yeah,
it. Yeah.
Sherwood.
So their unit was called the
Shows
the
how
Robin
much I
Hoods
watch
and
TV.
they were the Robin Hoods and the Crossbows. And so Sherlock Forest. That was what they called their
Sherwood.
camp.
Sherwood, wasn't it?
Sherwood, Sherlock.
Sherwood.
Yeah,
whichever.
something like that.
Yeah.
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 Anyway, that's what they named their little base out in the jungle.
Sherwood Forest.
Yeah, So he said that all the guys in the rear and the gear, they're at Saigon. They got all the Budweiser and all the other more well-known beers. He said by the time it got to us, we either got Pabst if we were lucky or Hams.
Yep.
So
I've drank many hams before too.
No, I ain't never had one.
You ain't never had a hams?
Nope.
I've definitely had more hams and Paps than I have Coors.
I would have to. I would have to agree with that. Yes. Yeah.
Hey, you said you were bringing pizza. If that beer.
I
and
followed
pizza-
through with my part of it.
I said I was bringing beer. I brought beer. I can't help it. You don't like the beer,
I'm sure I'll choke one down before it's over with.
dude. A pizza and a Coors, you can't go wrong.
are we talking Coors Banquets or?
Yes,
Banquets, yeah.
Banquets.
Man, those are good. I don't know what y'all are talking
There's
about.
one in the fridge if you want one.
We're just giving Clint a hard time.
Yeah.
That's what-
Oh
'cause
yeah,
that's what we
these
do.
assholes. They're giving me a hard time here. Yo,
I
whatever.
mean, that's like that's basically half of this hobby, right?
Right.
Is the peanut gallery.
That's it, man.
Man, I'm so glad that somebody else is there
Right.
on the same
Right.
page. The peanut
Right.
gallery's half the fun. I love flying, but the peanut gallery makes it even better.
Man, I love it when the old guys come to the field and they're like getting their chops in on you. You're like, is that guy busting my balls or not right now? I can't even tell, dude. I love
Yeah.
that. That's my favorite.
Man, there's a couple of them out at our flying field that I question whether, is that guy on my case or is he just giving me a ration?
Yeah.
Well, right. Well, man, and now I'm kind of feeling like the old guy because he was talking about, that was the 80s. That was before my time. I'm like, man, it's only like 40 years ago. Oh, shit.
Yeah.
No. To be clear, the '80s was before I lived here.
Right.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Oh, man, that's great.
But I mean, I wasn't going to mention I was born in the late '80s, but okay.
No, you're good, man. I'm cool with being the old guy. It works out.
You're not the old guy.
I know. It's awesome. Yeah.
Well, maybe. You might be the old guy.
That's me.
Yeah, you're the
Yeah.
old
I
guy.
think I got you by a year or two.
I think so.
Sucks to be old.
That's it, man.
Not
Well,
really.
Well, Clay, you got a Flex Innovations shirt on,
That was
man.
going to be my
Yeah,
next.
tell
Yeah,
us about
tell us
Flex
about that.
Innovations.
Well, Flex was started a few years back by Kike Samanzini and David Ribby. I believe they've been out for about 5 years now. All the listeners are at least going to recognize Kike's name. He's many times over world champion,
Which-
national champion.
Notice it as QQ.
QQ, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Man, watching that guy, I got to watch him a few years at Joe Knoll, watching him back one down and just cover himself in smoke. And then next thing you know, an airplane's pulling up through it.
Yeah.
Man, that's something to see.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's an amazing guy, you know, and not only is he an amazing pilot, but just an amazing guy. He still kind of has a little bit of accent. He can be hard to understand at times, but just as friendly, always smiling, always having a good time, and he's a great guy. David, you know, a lot of people don't recognize David right offhand, but he's a Top Gun champion. He's won a few times there. I'm not exactly sure all the details on that, but you know, David, he's a engineer. He worked for Bob Violet when he was in college and got his start in the industry, and they both worked at Horizon at one point in time, and so they decided to get out and start their own business up, and so they founded Flex Innovations, and fortunately here last year, last year is when I started talking with them about getting on the team, and they asked me to be a part of the team this year. Very fortunate.
awesome.
Congratulations on
Thank
that,
you.
man.
Thank
That's
you.
super cool.
Yeah, they don't want to pigeonhole down into one particular category, but they have a lot of 3D capable aircraft. Even their
Man.
more scale aircraft
That's what I was
tend to
gonna
be
say.
at least 3D capable. But you know, like they're not. You know, you hear names like 3D Hobby Shops. I realize that's a different, owned by someone else now, but you know that really puts you in the 3D. So Flex is they want to be a little bit more flexible.
Right. The,
Right.
the name
Throw
says
the
it
pun
all,
in there.
Flex.
Yeah.
And it's night flyer ready, right?
No, not everything.
Not every. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, I was thinking
some of the
all
airframes just don't really lend themselves to being made night flyers. One being the Mamba 10, just the construction of it, it would be very difficult, if not impossible, to make it into a good night flyer. So one of the key things about Flex is it has to fly really good. That's the bottom
obviously,
line.
yeah.
It has to fly good, and it has to fly good for multiple people. It can't fly good for just a particular group of people. It has to fly good for the largest majority of people that they can possibly fit in. They want to be all inclusive. So if you look at the designs and you think about, you know, well, why is it this way, or why did they choose this design? Because they're in the business of selling airplanes. They got to make it fit everybody. They
Right.
can't
They
can't
want-
make it fit, you know, my flying style or Larry's flying
Go
style
to
or
think from
whatever like
tame to
that.
wild, you know?
Yeah. So
They want to hand it to the guy who's just going to cruise around with it and, oh man, I got this badass airplane, or they want to hand it to the guy who's going to ring it out.
Well,
and you know, I mean,
what
they're badass airplanes.
What really
It
caught
looks-
my eye about them was last year at Joe Knoll on 3D line. That at nighttime there was is it a 172,
170.
a 170 on floats that was doing.
Oh yeah,
rolling
they're ringing it
circles.
out.
Oh,
Yeah,
man,
it
this
was
thing-
great.
It was awesome. It was full of lights. It was nighttime. night
Man,
flyer.
if you had never been to the Joe Knoll at night and
Oh,
gone to the
man.
3D line, you got to go. But anyways, go ahead.
So yeah, but to build on that, you know, the thing that caught my attention down at the 3D pond last year was Cessna 170
Yeah.
on floats
Yeah.
at night, torque rolling,
Yeah,
right
it
down
was
on the
on,
water,
right
and I
on
was
the
like,
water.
wow, that was one of the coolest things I
Yeah.
saw at Knoll.
Man,
I
I wish
agree.
we just met kind of over the winter, you know, but I wish I'd have known you were there, man. We were having a hell of a time.
Oh
Yeah,
man,
it was-
that is a party. Let me tell you.
That's the worst thing about this virus, you know, is all the stuff I've missed out on, all the people I didn't get to see this year
Right.
that I
Oh,
would
yeah.
have gotten to see, you know. So
Right. That's why I'm so excited about headed to this Duncan Fun Fly that you guys are putting on. Is, man, I'm ready to get out and do some flying.
Right.
Not even really necessarily flying. Go meet some new people. Go meet some friends. Go see your old friends. You know,
Speaking of old friends, you ought to call our Texas buddy.
man, I thought about it, but I
Come
don't know
on.
if he's gonna come from Texoma over that far or
It's
not.
not that far.
Have you met that guy?
He drove all the way to Joe Knoll.
And man, that same deal is a lot of the reason why we kind of started this podcast.
I know
we
it.
didn't really have anything to do, so we're like, nah,
Right.
why
Yeah,
not?
that seriously has a lot to do with this podcast, man. We were itching, and we'd still been flying, but we were itching for something to do. Just, you know, the human contact, and we thought, why not involve all our friends? You know,
Right.
Right. And I mean, social distancing, we're all 6 feet apart, I'm pretty
Absolutely.
sure.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
There's less than 8 of us here anyway.
yeah,
Yeah,
so we're good.
so it's irrelevant.
Yeah. Which
I mean, we was all sharing that Pabst Blue Ribbon just now. But that's
Yeah, we just had the one can. We were
Yeah,
passing it
just the one
around.
can.
We,
Man,
we didn't want to invest in 4, you know.
Hey, speaking of investing in 4, I got to give you some props on the new microphones.
Hey, thanks, man.
I really
Unfortunately,
do.
me and Claire are the only one using them. That's,
I know
that's
it,
the bad
but
part.
still.
Sorry, I didn't mean to leave you guys out, but you guys actually sit closer, and there's more bleed over between you two. So I think I got it set up to where there's a little less this time. I don't know. The quality should get better as we go because I'm kind of having to learn this stuff.
yeah, kind of figuring it out as we go.
Absolutely. But that's what makes it
No-
a scrap pile,
yeah,
too. You know?
none
I
of
mean,
us are pros at this, and
we literally dug this out of the scraps, and here we went.
yeah,
So,
basically, man. I mean, I've had this equipment sitting in somebody's basement for several years, other than the new microphones. So
well,
Hey,
for
absolutely.
those
put
that
it to
can't
use.
see, this studio it's pretty remarkable actually. You know, it's for some guys that just got together, it's pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, there is a little caveat to
Yeah,
that.
this is-
I own a marketing company, and this is my office where I do like product shots or have clients in to do work for them and stuff like that. So it's kind of doing a dual purpose kind of thing.
Well, I want to go back to this Flex Innovation. So, what's your favorite airframe? What do you fly?
Man, I'm a Mamba guy. So
That's a beautiful
yeah.
design. You know?
So, you know, full disclosure, I've owned one other biplane ever, and it was an old Great Plains Ultimate. It flew fine, but man, it wasn't terrible to put together. I mean, it was one of those planes you put it together and you left it together kind of things, you know.
I get it.
Go early and stay late if you're going to fly.
Yeah,
it, huh?
you know, but
Third scale D7 over here. I get
so
it.
Yeah.
so I was you know, at first I was kind of I'm not really a biplane guy, and I picked up a Mamba 10 that my buddy had, and he let me fly it around, and I just immediately felt comfortable with it and just fell right in with it just right away. And so a couple months later, we have our event, and Jason Reddish, a good friend of mine, kind of integral in getting me on the team, actually. He's a Flex dealer and all this. And anyway, Jason comes to town, and I bought my first Mamba 10 from him. And so we start flying it, and what was awesome is if anybody's flown the Auras, you understand the trim flight process.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
I
just threw that.
do not, so you'll have to explain it.
Well, we'll get into that. So I take the Mamba 10 out there, and on the first takeoff,
Your
just
new
yank it
one.
up into a hover.
Your new, okay.
Yeah, just put it together, you know, and bind it up and go out there. You know, literally, I bought this thing an hour ago and just go out there and yank it up into a hover and.
Didn't
And
fly
it-
the same, huh?
You know, and I'm like, man, this thing is awesome. And you know,
Oh,
Jason
okay.
comes around, he's like, hey, you know, most people kind of take it easy on the trim flight.
Yeah.
No need for that, huh?
No need for that. But so since then, I'm on. I've had a couple of Mamba 10s, a couple of Mamba 60s, and then the Mamba 70. You know, and then I'm
Now those
anxiously
those are
waiting.
electric too, or are those gas airframes?
So the 10 and the 60 are the electrics.
Okay.
And the 70 and the upcoming 120, those are the gas.
That's the
Now,
one that I'm excited
those are
about.
from Flex, right?
all of them are from Flex.
Are they foamies or are they?
So the electrics, the 10 and the 60,
Are
those
foam?
are foam.
Okay.
And then the 70, it's think of a smaller version of the Hangar 9 Beast.
Okay.
So Kike, in his past years, or in his previous employers, he designed the QQ Python years ago. That
Okay.
was,
I remember that.
I don't know if that was his first design, but that was one of his designs. Then when he was at Horizon or somewhere in there, he developed the Beast, which was the 100 to
Boy,
120
it's a hot
cc.
rod too. It's a nice airplane.
Yeah, very
I've got
nice,
the
beautiful
UMX,
airplane.
the original, before the gyro stuff.
Yeah, I'm not really sure if Kike was involved with the UMX, but definitely with the 120, that was one of his. Interesting fact, he actually told me he did a little bit of work on the full scale Beast, the one that's no longer with us. He worked with that guy and making some modifications and doing some work on that.
Did it crash?
Yeah, unfortunately.
I thought it landed,
No.
lost a cylinder, or something, landed on a road somewhere.
No,
No,
I
wrong
think you're
airplane.
thinking of Skip Stewart
Okay.
with the I believe that's a Pitts.
Yeah, that's a highly modified pitch
Oh,
that
okay.
guy's flying.
Okay.
No, the Beast. I don't know what happened. I'm not going to speculate what happened, but that airplane didn't make it, nor did the pilot.
Oh.
No, that plane is toast, and you'll
there's-
never see another one again, likely.
And there's kind of a myth that when they take some of these full-scale planes and turn them into model aircraft, that they're going to crash. Have you guys heard any of that stuff?
No.
Once they make a model of the
Once
full
they make a
scale,
model of the full scale, usually something goes wrong. So I mean, I don't know.
Well, I
I
mean,
was just reading about it.
right after they announced that Horizon was working with Mike,
Patey or whatever for Draco. That's where I heard that.
Yeah.
Man.
Oh yeah,
Draco.
Yep.
Yeah, Draco was terrible. But his new build is going to be awesome.
Man, I've been following that pretty close.
Yeah.
I watched the new one the other night.
Nah, I haven't been following it that close, but I mean that guy, he's amazing, and he's a big supporter of our hobby. You know, that's something we got to keep in mind is those full scale guys that support us, EAA guys like Mike Patey. I can't pronounce his name.
I don't know if I am either. So
Man, I love.
we'll get him on the show. Maybe he'll correct us.
I wouldn't be a bit surprised if one day, if this thing grows like we hope it will, that something like that can
Maybe,
happen.
man. You never know.
Yeah.
We're gonna set our eyes on the moon, whether we get there or not. Hey,
So-
it ain't because we didn't try.
So one thing to kind of hit on that you guys brought up that made me think of that, in my discussions, our team manager, Josh Schiff, he's a great guy. He's worked for Flex for, I don't know, a couple of years now. Previously with Hobbyco before they sold out. But so I've had a lot of discussions with Josh, and one of the big things is he said, everyone seems to think that you just take a design and you scale it up, scale it down. So he said it's so far from that you wouldn't even believe it.
Well, that was going to be my next question. Is what, because I know I can't pronounce it. Kike.
QQ's what
That's what I've always said.
I've
just
shook the
'cause-
man's hand one time in my life, and I said, "It's good to meet you, QQ." I mean,
But what kind of research and development? How many hours of flight time and
don't mind the
tweaks
racket on the
and all
background.
that go into something before they release it to the public? If it's even,
Man, it's
I'm sure it's hard to even know, but
I was going to say I don't even know how you would,
because
You
they
can
don't
calculate
release
that.
it till they are 100% satisfied.
well, I can't speak for Flex for sure because I don't really know. But recently I watched a live feed from Horizon, and they said something in the neighborhood of 18 months. And he said once you see a product on the shelf or on the website, it's been in development for at least 18 months.
18 months.
So I can only speculate that it's probably exactly the same for most
And
everyone
been
else.
wrung out.
Yeah.
Every situation is,
Well, and two, by the time the general public gets it, it's already been through multiple design changes. You've got, I'm trying to think of what David calls it, proof of concepts, and it's got to go through that phase. And proof of concepts, they may take a CNC mill and machine out an airplane out of foam or a part out of foam or something like that. And a lot of times those first ones, this is coming from the Horizon live feed, those first ones they use, they call it ice chest foam. And,
not the good EPP, but not the expand, just the, okay.
Yeah, so no, not the
Packing foam.
not the EPP or the EPOs and things like that. They're using, like I said, ice chest foam.
Right,
Everybody
right.
kind of knows what you're talking about when you say that. And so they're ugly, but they got to come up with something to make sure it's going to work,
Right.
And they'll 3D print stuff and all that. And then once all it gets kind of through there, then they got to go to a factory and say, hey, can you do this?
Right.
It's not just simple like, hey, this is what we're going to do. You got to find somebody that'll make the stuff for you.
To your standards.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of legwork that goes into going over to China and finding somebody to make this stuff for you. And, and that's something else I'd like to hit on is the Made in America. Man, I'm patriotic as it comes. I'm all American.
No, I think we all are.
But
Absolutely.
here's the reality of where we got ourselves to in this day and time. We don't have the technology or the know-how in the United States to do a lot of the things that this hobby uses.
Right, that's a fact. The industry to produce it's not here. It's just
Well, it's all gotten farmed out for so long.
that
Right. I personally think it's like everything else. You're going to see a whole lot. I have to give a shout out to Boss USA because I fly a bunch of their airplanes.
Right.
I fully see, a lot of it coming back. It may not be right now, but I bet, in the next 12 months.
And we've had this discussion. I don't mind paying up. I'll
not at
pay
all.
up for, but some of that stuff. it almost make it unaffordable to bring it back.
well,
You know what I mean?
I don't know that.
Well, here's the thing about it with balsa, you can get you a couple of CNC lasers, a couple of
Right.
CNC mills, and you can do a lot with balsa and ply.
Right.
But foam is a whole nother category, and it can't be ignored because a large portion of the hobby now is foam. I mean, it's just the reality of it. And when you buy a foam airplane, that company that makes that, the factory in China that makes it, they don't only make foam airplanes. They may make foam bumpers,
Right.
like the inner of a car bumper,
Right. Underneath.
or the foam inserts for a TV. When you buy a TV, the foam
the
that it comes
foam
packing.
or whatever.
Yeah, so that's actually something that comes about. You get to talking to some of these manufacturers, and they say, well, you guys, you discontinued this airplane. That was a great airplane. Well, a lot of times they have to weigh the cost to get the factory to do that. So the factory won't build you 10 airplanes.
Right.
You got to order
Minimum orders.
minimum orders. Minimum orders sometimes kills them. So let's say that a factory says, well, the minimum order is going to be 1,000 airframes, and they have to crunch the numbers and say, okay, how long did it take us to sell 1,000 of these airplanes?
Right.
If it takes 2 years, that's not a business viable decision, and that's where
Well,
you got to think of it. It's still a business.
Have you seen any of the design, like flex stuff on Banggood? Because I noticed that's a big issue too, is being produced overseas.
Personally, I've never been on there.
Copyright stuff. They don't have the same laws
right.
as we do.
And, unfortunately, I'm in a business that's money driven, just like all of us are. We all want to make a little money. But, in my world, if it doesn't turn 3 times in, 6 months or so or less, depending on what it is, you're losing money.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And but also you got all these bean counters out here who are trying to make a hurry up buck. Man, sometimes it's just especially when you're dealing with hobby driven people. This is a hobby for people. I understand they're trying to make money. I want them to make money, but they have to understand you have to have a quality item, and you have to be able to sell it as a quality item for extended length of time.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually they're going to get tired of it, and that's the decision you have to make when you get tired of it. I know a lot of people beat up on Hangar 9 for discontinuing some of the fifth scale or some of the bigger like P-51, P-47,
It
blah,
comes
blah,
down
blah,
to
blah,
you're
but-
going to have to cut the fat in order to stay in business.
Exactly.
So they actually addressed that on that live feed that they had out on Facebook whenever it was, a week or so ago. They actually addressed it, and part of the problem was getting a factory to make those kits.
Right,
because
there's
there's
a problem.
Yeah, it's not something. A lot of guys fought for that. They wanted to keep it and so on, but it just simply wasn't an option. It's not always as simple as we want to hang on to this. We want to sell a few of them.
Though, you're going to have to order 1,000 of them,
Yeah.
and if you're selling 200 a year, that's 5 years of holding on to that inventory.
Here's my deal with that whole situation. I'm going to promise you Fiberglass Specialties is in business for a reason. They are in the business to make fiberglass parts. There's a kit cutter in Wichita Falls.
It'll cut any kit?
That guy's in business.
Oh.
You're talking about Eddie, right?
Yeah.
What's the name? Bird? What is it?
Eddie Taylor, maybe.
I
think
I thought it was Bird.
No, it's
You're thinking of Brady.
Brady. That's who I was
Nah,
thinking.
that's long gone. But
Really?
yeah, oh yeah.
There's a couple of places that do some knockoff stuff. They're not knockoff,
Well,
but
no,
copies.
they're off the original plans,
They're-
but you
yeah.
can get a short kit.
Right.
These people are in business to cut these short kits.
I bet they're not making any money though.
Well,
And you
I
got-
don't know. They're still in business.
Well,
You gotta look at the
bet
overhead.
you that's a side. That's not a full time.
and,
Yeah,
and-
that's-
and you know
right.
what? That's okay.
It's a hobby for them to have the business of selling the short kits.
and that's okay.
Right. Oh, it's
they're
beautiful.
they're in the business to sell these kits or short kits or whatever they are. Sure, you might have to buy some longwood, but you got all the stringers, you got all the ribs, you
all
got
the hard stuff.
all the hard stuff that you got to
Well,
cut out or whatever. I
Now-
mean, use them.
Now, here's the difference, man. Now, you come from a building background. Your father is a builder. You're
Absolutely.
a builder. I mean, you guys have more planes that are built out of sticks than probably
Got the
most
most beautiful
people
scrap pile.
Man,
you've ever seen.
that is no joke.
So
But
before I even met Clint, I'd already heard about this old man in Oklahoma City that made cabin hookers.
Yep,
Yeah,
that's
great.
it, man.
Nobody
crazy.
could. And the guy I was talking to, he's like, I can't remember his name. It's this old guy from Oklahoma City. Come to find out, it's Clint's dad.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Have you got a chance to fly a hooker yet?
No, actually, funny story. The last time I saw a 40 size hooker, it went in the pond at Wichita Falls' flying field. The loudest crash I ever heard.
Loudest crash.
Yeah,
Man,
when the hooker hits the water doing about 90,
Right.
it makes a really loud pop.
Man,
No, I'm sure.
I've seen some cabin hookers and hookers lose their life. I assure you, and I've been at the hands of a couple of them.
Yeah.
And I can honestly say there's not many of them left.
And that's
I mean,
how many estimated. I think we've talked about this before on estimate. How many from anything from the 40 size up to the doubles, everything. How many hookers do you think your dad's built?
300.
That's a lot of airplanes.
That's a lot of
I'm not
super
gonna-
glue
I'm-
and balsa.
I'm not gonna lie to you a bit, man. I was a young man, and my dad, he provided us a really good life. But in providing that really good life, he worked in construction all his life. There's times that he wasn't busy.
Right.
I remember going to Pettit Jean. There used to be a fun fly at Pettit Jean
That
National
Arkansas?
Park in Arkansas.
Okay.
I remember going. I was probably 10 years old, man, and we took my dad took one airplane to fly, and I bet he took 10 airplanes that weren't even rigged up. They was built and covered, and my dad took them out there, and I promise you, he made house payments for 3 months on selling those airplanes.
Sold.
Yeah,
Every one of them.
every one of them gone.
Well, even to this day, people will pay for a quality built airplane.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yes.
You see it all the time with guys that that don't have the time to build or don't have the desire. They'll pay money to have and one of these old kit builders or scratch builders put something together for them.
Right.
I see
Right.
it all the time.
That's beyond my dad. It always has beyond my dad. He's never wanted to build for hire.
Mm-hmm.
I know he has a few times, but he's never wanted to build for hire. So,
Well,
but you're speaking of quality built airplanes on our Facebook page. That green D7, I hadn't flown it in over a year.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you saw the video that Larry posted of that airplane taking off and going straight up. That was the first time I'd flown that airplane in over a year.
Wow.
Not even a second thought in it.
So-
Warmed it up and went flying.
So here's a question I got for a builder. What's your glue of choice, and why?
Bob Smith Industries only.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we've used Zap a few times, but you just kind of get used to the bottle.
In this area, Bob
Smith
Smith's
is-
been that's-
Absolutely.
That's the readily available stuff.
Yeah, Bob Smith. You
and
kind of get used to the bottle, how it
The
flows.
Zap
how
bottles
it
are
pours,
real
and-
hard. They're
Yeah.
stiff. You can't really get a good.
So it's funny you say that because I actually ran into that not that long ago, and so unfortunately a while back we lost our hobby shop down in Duncan, and we were selling out. So I bought some Zap Thin CA and a bunch of the thin little tips, the
little needle
applicator tips.
Uh-huh.
And I got used to that bottle. I mean, I used it forever because thin goes a long way. If you're not kit building, thin
I
CA
already
goes
see
a
where
long.
you're going with this.
So
You
I
got a
got used
mess.
to it, and then I go buy some Bob Smith, which in every other glue, the medium CA, the epoxies, the canopy glues, a lot of other stuff. In fact, Bob Smith makes a really good EPP, EPO glue. So I've utilized Bob Smith in a lot of things. I bought some thin CA, and I was
It
making
went everywhere. Didn't it?
yes, and I was getting so
A
frustrated.
bunch
So
of hard balsa wood. Didn't
yeah,
you?
so then I was like, I gotta get some more Zap Thin. I can't work with this BSI, but I love BSI. Like I said, I've used it a bunch. If I could figure out a good way to put the tips onto the thin, I think I'd be happy.
Right.
I've never had a problem getting the. You talking about the little needle?
Yeah, the one I had, for whatever reason, they kept coming off.
Really?
And then the other thing too was, while you're working on stuff, I'd just set the bottle down, and with the Zap or even the medium, most time it'll run back down the tip, and you don't clog the tip up. And I'm really adamant about wiping the tips off before I put the caps on, so that I don't glue the caps
You
on.
put the caps on.
I try to, because I may go a week or two, and not get to work on anything. So But I'm pretty adamant about it because anybody that's had BSI and let the bottles lay on their side or whatever,
you
they've
gotta
glued
have
the
a pair
tips
of
on.
pliers.
Well,
Yeah.
what I always do is I use it. I'll set it up and give it a little,
Right.
push some air through it, set
Yeah.
it straight up.
So what I kept running into was the tips would it would hold a little bit of glue right at the base of the tip and right on the where the what do you call it, the needle tip or whatever, wherever that attachment is. It would hold a little bit of glue there, and it was stopping the tips up, and I was getting frustrated with it. Yeah. So maybe I just need to get some more of the little extensions.
Well, and here's the deal: the extensions I use, I believe, come from Bob Smith, and they're almost stretchy. Like when you push
guys
them
are
on
talking
there.
about extensions, man. I'm cutting the bottle off as I go. You know.
By the time he gets done, he's got a 16th inch hole.
Yeah, I'm not worried about the tip at this point. I'm worried about how I'm going to get my hand off of whatever I just grabbed because that shit just went everywhere.
So I keep debonder for that reason.
Right? Yeah.
I have. I mean, is this
Quit knocking on the damn table,
is
man.
this
You're
thing
messing with the
wood?
mic.
Is this thing wood, man?
don't know.
I need
Yeah.
some wood to knock on here
The
because
floor's wood.
I ain't never.
Crawl your ass down there on the floor and knock on it.
I ain't never glued my hand to an airplane. I've glued my fingers
I've glued
together.
my hand to my face.
I glued
tell you,
myself to myself.
So it was a bottle of thinner where they had clogged up, and I couldn't get it. So you take a needle or whatever and make you a little. And
That's what a T-pin's for.
Well, I stuck a T-pin in it, and I don't know somehow that while I'm squeezing it. Well, when it went out the sides and went straight into my eye.
Oh man.
Well, what do you do when something goes in your eye? First thing you do is you grab your eye. Well, that's how my hand got glued to my eye. Luckily, though, there's enough oil and crap on my face that I got it worked up.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Glued my hand straight to my face.
well, I'd have loved to have seen it.
This has been 15 years ago or more.
Well, I was a little late. Of course, as per our conversation earlier, man, y'all was in the same birthing spot at the exact same
Exactly.
time. I had
No
no
joke.
idea.
Well, I'm
Yep.
sure. Yeah. What time was your boy born? Barn.
Dude, man, you're putting me on the spot here. I can't remember that. Man, it was honestly, I think it was like about 11, 12 o'clock in the afternoon.
No, my
Or
boy
in the
was 2
morning.
in the afternoon.
2 in the afternoon. Yeah, so we're
See,
right there.
We were
real
there.
close.
You're,
And it's not a big place. There's maybe
No,
10
no.
rooms.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
is this
at
you
least.
two or your kids? I'm
No,
confused.
our
Well,
kids.
me and him
Oh,
have
wow.
2 boys. Will be 18 on the 4th.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Born in the same hospital.
same hospital,
18,
same time.
well,
had no idea.
16 years before we met each other. Or whatever.
Holy cow, that's funny.
Same day,
It is.
same time,
Yeah.
pretty close.
So
Within a few hours, it sounds
Right.
like.
speaking of liking stuff, we were having this conversation earlier, Larry. Tell me about Red Line and your weed eater.
Oh man, so I never had any luck with gas. I've dead, the few deads, and I've got this anxiety built up.
He's
I flew
going electric.
No, I'm not going electric.
Yeah.
I was electric.
You went electric.
I went
not
electric.
Going.
I went electric in probably about 04.
Whatever, but still,
And
tell
then
me
I
about this oil.
started to do the gas thing with these guys, and I'm going back electric. So I've got this gas mixed up because I had a 50cc extra Aeroworks Edge. So I got this gas left over. Well, I got lawn equipment, so I'm like, I'm no better way to use it than to put it in my weed eater, my blower. Man, that Red Line smells so good. And so when I, that nostalgia, you smell. I'm doing the yard, man. I feel like I'm at the flying field, smelling something running,
Having a good old time.
having a good
So,
old time.
Funny
right?
story about that. I've noticed exactly what you're talking about because a lot of times in my weed eater, I don't always use. There was a time I didn't always use the same fuel for airplanes or weed eaters. I had different, but they were close enough to the same mixture. I'd run out of weed eater gas, and I'd just go out to the airplane trailer
Right.
and grab the gas can, throw a little bit in there. And within about 5 minutes, you smell the difference because you can.
You can.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know,
Now,
different
is that-
oils have a different odor to them for sure. And so I've noticed it before, and here a few months ago, we had a guy come down and visit us. He's actually from up here in Oklahoma City. And I'd never met him before, but he's a friend of a friend, great guy. His name's Jesse, in fact. And anyway, Jesse comes down, and he's loving the Mamba 70, which most everybody that sees a Mamba 70 loves it. It's a beautiful airplane, and it flies so well. So I'm out just hovering it down low, and he comes up to me while I'm hovering it, and he's right behind me. He said, "Hey, I just want to tell you, your red line smells like Gucci. Smells better than Gucci." so that's the ongoing joke at our field is it's better than
Better
Gucci.
than Gucci.
Yeah.
Then I notice you're wearing a red line hat.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I've been on Team Redline for a couple of years now. That's where that's come from.
Again, congratulations on that because
thank you.
you've made moves out of Duncan, Oklahoma, or wherever you were 2 years ago that, man, some of us just dream of.
Well, I tell you what, man, it's all about being at the right place at the right time. You know, anybody that says there isn't a sliver of luck out there is, I mean, that's just what a large part of it is. You just got to be at the right place at the right time, and you just never know. I mean, you got to keep your eyes open, keep your
ears open more so than your eyes sometimes.
Yeah, you know, and then the other thing too is, you know, I tell people just be friendly. Don't be afraid to go out and introduce yourself because you don't know what doors that may open.
Right.
You know, I mean, that's how the flex deal and the red line. The red line's even kind of the way I went about that one. So with my event that's coming up here in 2 weeks, that's I think year 5 for the Summer of Fun Fly event. And a couple years back, you know, I'm thinking about, hey, we need some sponsors. So I'm just brainstorming. And I'm thinking, hey, I've been using Redline for a while. They sponsor events. I see them on race cars. I see them on dirt bikes. Surely they'll sponsor this.
Right.
You know, and I've had steel, like as in the steel chainsaws. I've seen them sponsor a few events, mine included. So I'm thinking, hey, let me just Google that phone number and just give them a call and see what they say.
Just a cold call.
Yeah.
Look what it turned into, huh?
Yeah. So I call them up and I'm saying, hey, you know, looking for a sponsorship and this and that. And this lady I'm talking to, she says, hey, well, you got to go on and fill out an application. I'm like, oh, man. Application's, you know, months away. My event's in 2 months. You know, the application's 6 months. It's like, well, I guess I'll have to wait till next year. And before I got off the phone, I said, hey, just to be clear, I'm not talking about for me. I'm talking about for an event.
Event, right?
And the tone changed immediately. It's like, oh, okay, great. You know, and then they start talking
Like
to
some
me.
raffle prizes.
Yeah, you know, so like, yeah,
hang
we
a
can work
banner
with
up.
you. And, you know, and it just kind of turned into, you know, a few conversations here and there. And they told me, hey, go fill out an application. So I did. When the applications come up, I filled one out and I got chosen, you know, luckily. So that's how, you know, you just never know how things like that will pan out. You know, you never know where you'll be and somebody recognize you and say, hey, would you like to do this?
Right.
That's super cool. And I know that Redline, and I know that it was before Flex. You were on with Flex, but I know Redline sent us a nice package at the Thunder, you know, and we sure appreciated that. So, you know, it was pretty cool to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of raffle prizes.
Oh, yeah.
So
raffle
we were
prizes.
talking earlier. Last Fun Fly I went to, they had a out of production Aeroworks
this guy
Edge
right
540,
Mm-hmm.
the little 60 size.
Okay.
Little-
Somebody donated it for the raffle, and as soon as it was posted, I said, "That's mine." And I went to that raffle and I bought me a length of tickets.
Before that raffle, let me help you out with this
Right.
a
Well,
little
before the raffle, I said that one's mine.
bit. Yeah, it said, hey, that's mine. It's
on the
gonna
Facebook
happen.
page.
Yep.
Well, I went there. I bought and I'll be damned. My span of tickets right in the middle. Boom. I won it. Well, I'm going on the record right now to tell you that Skywing, that's mine.
I just want a 100cc one.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool.
Absolutely.
100cc Skywing.
Skywing.
Yeah. GP 123, DA 120.
Hold on here. I thought we were anti-GP.
No,
I
I'm
thought
not anti
Clint-
nothing. I
What,
like
do
a
you have
GP.
do you have a preference?
No. I'm a GP guy and a DA.
I promise you right now, this guy here is not anti-GP. After
Okay.
what we saw at Joe Nall last
Well, let me back up and tell the story here because my first time meeting Clint, mutual friend of ours, he, you know, and that's an interesting conversation in itself.
I
there.
already know where this is going.
So anyway,
bad.
so I show up to Baxter and I got my
All I
big
gotta
pilot
say is,
with
that's
a,
the
it's
first
got a
time I saw
DLE
you.
30.
I got my 123 on it, you know, and I'm out flying it and
Evidently, this was before last year's Joe Nall.
it was after.
No, we literally met over the winter.
Yeah, no,
He had
it was
got-
in the summer last year. It was after Joe Nall.
After
though.
Joe Nall?
It was
Okay.
after Joe Nall, Clay, and another gentleman from Duncan. Had
So
come up
I'm
to fly
jumping.
with
I'm
us.
jumping ahead. So, anyways, you show up with your
I show up out to Baxter.
123?
Yeah, I'm out at Baxter and I'm flying my big pilot and
Huh?
it's doing fine. You know, the old 123 has always been a good engine for me. And Will, he's like, hey, that's a GP. And somebody starts shaking their head or something. And I thought it was Clint.
No,
it may have been
sir.
someone else.
It wasn't
We
me.
fell
I
in
assure
love.
you.
We fell in love with the GPs at Joe Nall.
That'll be the next one that in our pile or my pile.
I don't
it
remember
will be
who
a
it was.
GP.
If it was Jace or who it was that was. No, it wasn't Jace.
It wasn't
he flies
Jace.
DA.
He flies
It was
DA.
one of those other kids
yeah.
at night. Came through with that GP 123
on time.
on the pipe doing a knife edge and just complete
So
90-degree turn, and that thing
it
Didn't
wasn't
burble, didn't nothing. It turned the
Nothing.
corner and kept going.
It kept
wasn't
hauling ass.
was it Tom Edgecombe by chance?
He was demonstrating the Skywings.
Was it
Tom,
Skywing?
Well, Tom was flying a
Airframe
Skywing
with
with
a
a Jeep.
GP123,
Yeah, Tom was flying one of those. He was flying Super Tims actually.
It was a green and white one. I can tell you.
Yeah,
that.
that's Tom.
Okay, so it was that gentleman. I guarantee you, he come through.
At 120.
Oh yeah, he was on it. He come through from right to left, and he got to about center stage and went.
No,
and
he
went
got
the other direction.
I had a few
And never missed a
beverages,
bit.
but I was standing there, and he got directly in front of me, and it went bam
Yeah.
so violently that I lost my balance for a minute.
Well, let me back
What a
up.
time.
I won't say with absolute certainty it was Tom, but so Tom, he's a younger guy. Anyway, he's from England, and he come over here, and he was flying one of Tim Hanstein's airplanes, and
Great
I'm
dude.
relatively certain that it was green and white, but I know it was a GP because Tom is sponsored by GP, and then him and his mother, they own I believe it's Black Raven Hobbies, something to that nature in the UK, and they're the importer for Skywing in the UK. So that's one of Tom's sponsors. And then I actually met him because Tom and I were the two Redline guys at the event. So we took a few pictures together, and I got to talk to them. It's really interesting that we're American English and they're English.
Right.
So we get to talking
They're
about the
proper
different
English.
Yeah, we get to talking about the differences in language and what we call roads, and it's amazing.
Right,
so if
right.
you ever get a chance to talk to them, just talk to them. It's quite fun.
We got a friend out the flying field, Stewart. That
Man, what a guy!
he's a hot rod guy. He had a what was that ZL1 Camaro?
Oh yeah.
Bad boy. Well, he traded that in. Now he's got the new.
He's got a new
Stingray.
C8 vet.
Yeah.
Oh,
But he was talking about 0 to 60 times, and he was like, it does 0 to 60.
not,
Man,
yeah.
trying to keep up with. Not
I was
the
like, that's
60.
neat as shit. And then he was talking about the tires, the performance. He was telling how brilliant they were. And I was like, hell
yeah,
yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know this isn't a car podcast, but
Sure it is.
but there's a guy out there.
it's a
It's a scrap pile,
so it's
man. You never
everything.
know what you're
So-
going to get.
So we talk about friends that we meet flying. A friend of mine that I met through flying events and what have you, from down in Fort Worth area, he has one of the ZL1s with
Yeah.
the 1LE package on it.
Yeah.
And
This was
it's
a
just
bad boy.
phenomenal. I thought I rode in fast cars before, but man, he took me for a ride in this thing, and it's 0 to 60 and then 60 to 0. That's what makes
Yeah.
it even more impressive.
Yeah.
Is it'll slow
It will
down.
stop on a dime.
Yes,
Right.
it was. That car's packed with so much technology. It's just unreal.
Well, that's what it took for him to get that C8, and he ordered that back
Man, it was.
it was 8-9 months.
He only had his ZL1 for
Zed.
ZL1.
Yeah.
Man, he only had that thing for I think he had it for 6 months, and then they were talking about releasing the Corvette.
He
and
traded it
He went
in.
and traded it in for the down to get
Well,
on the list
that
to get a
the
vet.
ZL1
And the tires
and,
were bald.
and
Oh, yeah.
some money and a large
and-
sum of money.
So
Absolutely.
the C8 is the mid-engine.
The mid-
That-
That's the
yes.
new one.
That's
Okay.
the most
And it's
exotic
the only
thing.
one I know about running around in Oklahoma City right now.
Yeah, that's likely
Right.
so.
And
Yeah.
he drives it. He'll bring it out to the gravel flying. Well, maybe not. Maybe.
Man, I think that's his daily for real.
Nah,
Nah,
he's got that white
truck.
pickup.
He bought
But
that
no, I
truck
think
just-
he is driving it daily.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that guy don't care, man.
That's awesome.
Guys?
That's what happens when you're an engineer, man.
I mean,
Yeah,
guys, how do you feel about a break real quick?
man, sounds good. We'll be right back,
Good with me.
guys.
So, welcome back, Clay Ricks.
Thank you, guys.
We're sure glad to have you tonight.
I'm thankful that you guys invited me up.
Absolutely,
Having
man.
a
This
great
won't be the
time.
only time, I'm sure.
Absolutely not, man.
You guys are a hoot, and this has been a lot of fun.
Good, man. That's what we're after, is having a lot of fun here and doing what we're doing and trying to move forward with this.
We definitely appreciate you putting up with us being a little bit of an idiot. You know,
Yeah,
we're
like-
kind of off topic and trying to get through it.
Yeah, we don't always stay on topic, but that's part of the fun of the scrap pile.
Well, like a conversation I told Casey during our break that I was really, really glad you guys reached out to me, because whenever I first heard about this, I was really anxious and eager to get on here anyway, because, I love RC. I love talking about it.
I'm pumped about that, and when I was reaching out, I was like, man, I got no idea. I'm just going to do it. It's kind of like what you're talking about, right place at right time, and it's one of those things, if the worst thing you're going to hear is no, might as well ask.
Absolutely.
So that's where I went with that.
Well, and touching on he loves RC, something we haven't touched on is your AMA affiliation.
Well, yeah, so I am the AVP for Oklahoma. And that's
Man, you got a whole list of badass credentials. I'm just telling you.
Superstar,
like
right?
I said, man.
Right.
Honestly, I don't see it that way. I have
You're
I
just
have my
doing
guys.
what you love.
I'm just doing what I love, and and I got the guys that I look up to that I'm like, man, these are the greats. These are the legends, and these are.
While you're on that, why don't you give us two or three?
I'm gonna say Jace. I mean, he's a young guy, but he's got a good
That
personality.
dude's a stud, and he's got the right attitude, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean that dude. To me, he's awesome. And then we talked about Kike for a little bit, but Kike, that guy, he's amazing. And then.
Man, just seeing that guy's heart and soul in doing what he's doing, starting a company. And
Yeah. There's a lot of guys out there that I look at and I think, man, this guy really knows what he's talking about, and just having a good time, There, I don't want to get too far into it, but yeah, there's a lot of guys out there.
Right?
A whole list of guys, yeah.
And back to Jace, dude. Not only is Jace an awesome guy, his mom and dad.
oh, they're stand up.
Man.
Man, we had a drink with them. We talked to them. They're just regular,
regular
all-day
people,
people,
man.
John,
Regular
he's
parents of a superstar, right?
Absolutely.
John, he's quite a builder and quite a nice guy. I mean, just look at what the guy has done with himself.
Right.
He's amazing. So,
Absolutely.
So back on the AMA thing, question a lot of people at our field.
Man,
has.
it's an elephant in the room.
the elephant.
Well,
Lots
of
I don't even wanna
speculations.
mention
I've
it.
heard the sky's falling. I've heard people freaking
Oh,
out, trying to
yeah.
sell all your RC stuff because you ain't gonna be able to use it.
No, man, I think you guys are good. It's all my fault because I fly drones.
Well, it is your fault.
I know it. It's all
Absolutely.
No, I do feel that's what's driven it, but
No, it's uneducated people flying drones that have driven it.
here's the deal with
There's a
society.
difference.
If you, it's kind of like these. I don't know if they call them designer drugs or these gas station drugs like that synthetic marijuana stuff. People feel that it's okay and it's safe to purchase because it's legal to purchase.
Well, I think the biggest thing is these manufacturers have made something that you can put it in anybody's hands. Like he was talking about, Clay was talking
Mavic.
about his 8-year-old daughter. No problem.
I
flying
don't
one
feel that
straight
the
out of
Mavic
box.
is the problem. I feel the problem is the
common
the
sense.
$59 drone that you can go to Best Buy and purchase
Right.
that has
That's the problem.
the range of 2.4 gig that
Well,
Right.
I'm going to hit on a couple of things, and I think Clint brought it up, and it's the uneducated. So a lot of people go out and they buy these things for Christmas, and I'll say it, they go buy it for their kids.
Exactly.
And they have themselves no idea of what this hobby's about.
or
They
the
have no
repercussions,
idea.
what could actually happen with these things if
Exactly.
The danger, I
Right.
mean, it's all bad if you have no clue what you're doing. It's not people are dumb. It's people are uneducated.
uneducated, right?
Right. And the thing about it is they are so easy to operate, and it doesn't require, go fast, back up to when you guys got started in the hobby. Whenever I really got in the hobby, things were starting to evolve. They didn't have the safe technology, but, simulators were readily available. People had simulators. electric foamies were super easy to fly, so people were buying those and learning to fly. But back up a little bit, just go back 15, 20 years ago. If you wanted to fly a model airplane, anything RC in the air, you had to have some help. It was not really a hobby that you could just go out and figure this out on your own.
Technologies came along. You couldn't go to a swap meet and buy enough stuff for $60 to get yourself in the air.
At a swap meet, sure you could.
A plane motor, field equipment, everything.
Absolutely.
You'd have to be a real
you're wrong on
deal
that.
maker, man.
You're wrong on that one.
But another
I'm
thing
gonna
we
tell
talked
you right
about.
now, the problem with the world.
Naysayer.
I still call bullshit on $60 at a swap meet get you in the air.
You come this swap meet season, we'll have a podcast. I'll
tell you what, I will too.
Of my money,
dude,
and I'll be in the air.
This has got to include.
Now hold on.
I don't care if it's 72 megahertz.
No. Hold on.
No.
We gotta make a deal here. We gotta make some concessions.
Okay. Let's do it.
Is it gonna be fly it, or is it gonna be put a receiver and a battery in it and fly it?
Fly it. You go to Best Buy for $60 and put some
I'm not
AA
going
battery.
No. I'm talking about going to a swap meet.
I'm talking
and
about
buying an airplane for $60
You have to
and
calm
flying
down.
it.
Listen to me.
I'm calm.
My comparison is I can go to Best Buy, buy that little molded green clear plastic drone for $60, take it to the house and fly it.
He's throwing.
Send it in the air.
That's not my problem.
Clint's
I'm
upset.
going to a swap meet.
This guy.
Dude,
Now, hey, let me remind you. Wait.
Nah, no,
Let me
hold on.
No. Let me
Nah.
remind you of a swap meet. Me and you and Larry were at a swap meet, and I believe I walked out of there with an airframe that flew for $65.
Right.
It flew with what?
A battery and a radio.
Let's back
Did
up.
it have a receiver in it?
And I'm going to.
Well, I had to put a receiver.
Let's back up. I'm going to have to side with Larry a little bit on this one.
Yeah.
I'm talking about
and the reason I'm going to
flight
say
ready.
this is
Because
because
you get a radio, you get the battery, you get the quad, everything for $60.
he said it right there. All right, yes, I could go. I've been to swap meets and
All
bought
you gotta
airplanes
have is
for
some
less
AA
than
batteries and
$60.
Flip a switch on, and yeah, you can get an airframe with a motor, maybe some old servos.
But what about
You're
a
still
battery
gonna have-
charger, a
you're
transmitter?
still- everything comes in
Yeah.
that box.
Yeah.
Probably including the 2.4
But-
gig, 4 AA batteries. It all comes in that box.
Yeah, but we're
That's
really
my point.
I'm telling you.
And how many people? What I'm saying is everybody goes to Best Buy. Not everybody's going to swap meets.
So that's their bad.
I'll still take you up on the challenge.
I'm going to tell you right now.
I'll give you the $60.
that one of the most fun conversations that Clay and I have had was standing at the Shawnee Thunderbird swap meet this last year. You remember that?
yeah, in January, yeah.
Absolutely. It was a great time.
I love swap meets.
I'll walk in there with $60 and buy a trainer and go fly it.
A
I don't
trainer?
care. Absolutely.
With-
What's wrong with a trainer?
No,
We've talked about
You
this.
can buy a power glider for all I care. I'm telling you, I don't think you can do it for $60.
All
and
right,
take it to
$60
the-
bucks. Bet.
No using nothing
no,
you
no,
have.
No. All I'm gonna do is put my receiver,
No.
my battery,
No.
and my transmitter.
You're
That's all
missing
I'm
the
gonna
point.
do.
You're missing the
No,
point.
no, I'm not missing the point
Clay,
because I'm not using
At
somebody
least
else's
Clay's
shit.
on my side. You're missing the point.
No,
no.
I'm not missing the point.
You
It's
are.
it's a $60 ready to fly setup.
Yeah, all I got to do is put a receiver
No,
in it.
no.
You're missing the point.
I
Everything.
don't have Spectrum. I don't want Spectrum.
No, it doesn't
I'm
matter.
gonna have
Hey,
to put something of mine in.
it don't matter if it's Spectrum or not. You got to try to go get a deal at a swap meet where you get the radio, you get the battery, you get the charger,
Everything
you, get
you would
everything.
get in a box.
See, y'all are putting all these limitations on.
That's
all
not
I
a
want-
limitation.
There's no
These-
Yeah, it
limitation.
is. All
It's
I
a
want to do is put a
comparison.
receiver in it.
No, because I can go to Best Buy. I can get everything in one box.
That's
Everything.
not my problem. That's the problem with the hobby
This-
today.
No,
This
this
guy.
is the point
You're
we're
right.
trying to make.
That's
That's
where
the problem with the hobby today.
You're
Again,
right. That's
you're
what's
going
got
to
us here.
Best Buy. You're supporting a great big chain. I want to
Well,
go to a swap meet and
because
buy
you're a hobby guy.
fucking trainer
You're the hobby guy. We're
Yeah.
talking
and
about
fly it.
We're talking about the thing that has not ruined the hobby, but has brought this a negative
morphed it.
attention. They're not hobby people. They're going to the middle of the
again.
mall. They're going to damn Crossroad, not what's the
Right, Penn
I don't go to
Square.
mall.
Penn Square,
Mall.
whatever.
And there's a guy sitting there selling drones.
yeah, straight
Again.
from China.
That is the public's mistake for buying that airplane or quad or whatever it may be
But hold on.
and not
Agreed.
being educated.
I was going to say, let's back up. It's not that they're hearts are in the wrong place or anything. It's just they simply don't know any different.
They
and
feel
that's where
that
I
it's
was.
an okay thing because there's no you don't have to fill out anything. I don't have to be approved. If I got $100 bill,
yeah,
I can get this camera drone from the middle of Penn Square Mall.
and
I'm not.
And that's
doing
where I
it.
was. Well, we know,
You're not the problem.
but what we're going
You're
at.
not either. You're not gonna go do it.
He's totally missed the point,
he's
man.
missing the point.
I just want to bang myself in the head.
Promise. I want to watch.
So
Oh man,
I
you're
think
totally missing the point.
I think
No,
Larry
I'm
and Larry and I are we're talking about the same thing, and
Right.
and I was talking about it briefly, but a few years ago, 20 years ago, however long you want to go back, you had to go to, if you wanted to fly model airplanes, you had to go to a field. You had to have somebody help you learn how to fly it. You had to
Right.
have somebody help you put the thing together.
Right.
It's what Clint is saying. Like it was like you had to build something. You had to,
Maybe.
Y-
So
What do you mean, maybe?
okay, let
Yeah.
me go back to.
I'm all good with the flight test.
Man,
I'm
I
all good with
almost-
the electric
I
stuff.
almost feel that I could. Nah, we won't go there.
yeah.
Yeah, let's go there.
I almost feel
in.
that I could. Nah, we won't go there. We'll
Let's
go there.
go
No.
Come on.
We'll cut the no.
Hey, Larry, we're gonna save that one for the next episode.
But that's
Hey, by the way, Larry, I love you.
Oh, you ain't got me riled up at all, man.
Okay.
But that's just how that's how the environment has changed. It's not really. I'm not going to say it's a bad thing. I'm not going to say it's a good thing. It's just different, and that's how people's got to look at it. It's just different, you
Right,
know.
and it's one of those things that people have been exposed to a lot of drone photography, drone stuff. They see it all the time, and when you can go
That's
into a
what I'm
store
saying.
and pick it up for $60, hell yes, hell yeah. I mean that's kind of what got me
You're
into
well,
this hobby.
fucked up.
No.
You are messed up.
Let's get it together, guys. We're gonna finish
no,
this show.
Seriously,
man.
what I'm saying is, and I think that's where this whole drive came with the what is it? What's the actual technical the ID the
Remote ID is that what you're
remote ID?
Yeah.
Right.
remote ID. So
I think
remote.
that's what's driven it more than anything is the
Tell me I'm wrong
ready
here.
ready quads and stuff.
Yeah,
Tell me I'm wrong.
I believe
You're wrong.
it was I believe it's a multitude of things actually, and one of those things is
Naysayer.
somewhere in the neighborhood of maybe 10 years was the first time I started seeing YouTube videos of long range FPV. People
so-
going
Which
way
is
beyond,
super cool in my opinion.
If
they're-
it's done right.
but people were going well beyond visual range, and so that was becoming popular, and it just continued to grow, and then people started doing it dangerously because they didn't know any better, and they started getting into patterns at at airports. They're flying in the path of airplanes and things like that,
Which
because
is all bad.
which is all bad. But they didn't know it was bad. A lot of people didn't know it was
Right,
bad,
because they're not involved in the hobby aspect that we are.
or they're not involved in full
They're
scale
not
aviation.
AMA. They're not AMA guys. They're
This is where I have a problem. What in even a normal person, I'm not talking about in the hobby, I'm not talking about somebody who flies recreationally for profit with a 107, whatever. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a normal person with a normal 12-year-old kid going up to Best Buy or whomever, Walmart, whatever, wherever you can buy a drone.
Mm-hmm.
What makes it okay in those folks' mind to go fly
ignorance.
It's a lack of
It's
common.
ignorance.
It's a lack of common
It's
sense.
uneducated.
It's just being uneducated.
Like I said, it's people get in their head that if I
I-
can go to a store and buy it legally, it's not like a gun. You gotta be approved to buy a gun. You
well,
can go
you
buy
should be
that.
approved.
Agreed.
I mean, I guess I am at a personal loss on what makes it okay in somebody's mind to go fly this drone. And I'm not calling a quadcopter a drone or a racing quadcopter a drone or anything like that. I'm not saying
We're talking
that.
about the
I'm talking about the average Joe
Right.
going to Walmart or Best Buy or whatever and buying a quadcopter.
air hogs, whatever
Air
brand. Right,
Air
yeah.
Hogs, DJI. I'm not trying to call nobody
I
out here.
would say I would
Yo.
eliminate the DJ. guys with DJIs, they've invested some money.
Right. But at the end of the day, what makes it okay to put that quadcopter, drone, whatever you want to call it, what makes it okay to put it in the path of a full-scale airplane carrying human beings?
I think it's probably they're not thinking.
Right.
How do you not
You
think
know?
about that?
Well, no.
I guess that's my bad.
Okay, so here let me ask you this. What's the first question, I'll say a group of 3 questions you get from somebody totally oblivious to RC?
How far, how
much-
fast, how much does
far,
it cost?
How fast and how
Absolutely.
high? How high?
Right, how high
all
can you
that.
fly it?
That's the
Absolutely. How
mentality of
much?
people that aren't educated. They don't know.
And that's fine. I'll be more than happy to answer those questions.
Right.
Every day, every time.
Right.
It doesn't matter. I'll answer those questions. I'll talk to anybody.
But the reality of it is that's the group of people that has.
It's a lack of
to
knowledge.
me,
I
and-
beg to
It's a lack
differ.
of knowledge.
I beg to differ wholeheartedly.
What do you think has brought this on then?
Because those people are at a flying field. They're at a sanctioned AMA flying field asking
That they've
questions.
stumbled across
Right.
9 times out of 10.
And I get that.
I didn't even know this place was here.
Right.
I get that all the time, you know.
But, those people are asking questions that I want to answer. The people I want to talk to are the people who are not showing up.
Right.
That's the people I want to reach out to and be like, hey,
Well,
don't do this.
Please send your questions, comments, and concerns to
Right.
rcscrapfire@gmail.com. We'll address this. We'll get Clint right on it.
Right. This has really opened a can of worms, evidently.
Why has Clint got to get right on
Boy,
it?
he got
Well,
fired
you're
up.
pretty heated.
He got fired up. Which
Well,
man?
I
I mean,
mean,
hey, all right, we're good. But I mean, here's the fact. Nothing has brought more attention and more people into this hobby than the technology of drones.
So here's
You-
my question.
you know what I'm saying?
Do you
It's
think
definitely a
there'll be
hot
ever?
button
Do you
topic.
think there'll ever be a government regulation on that aspect?
I'm not sure.
You know what I mean?
At this point, it's really hard to say. But to back up, kind of where we got before we got off on this tangent.
Before Clint threw his
So-
fit.
What do you mean? I didn't throw a fit.
One aspect that I
When
Radio
think
you get the
edit.
playback.
Radio edit.
I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on this because I'm far from it. But one thing to be considered of is in the full-scale aviation world, there's a push for the ADS-B or ADS-B, which is just basically where they broadcast out a signal to other aircraft for avoidance.
So a warning,
So-
warning, like something's in your
So,
area, vicinity.
like I said, I'm not an expert on it, and some of the listeners are probably going to correct me and completely shoot down what I'm
We
about to
asked for
say.
that.
But it's my understanding that
we
in full
want feedback, positive or negative.
it's
we want
it's my understanding that in the full scale aircraft, the more advanced ones, let's say that, such as passenger aircraft, the airline companies, they have technology in the aircraft
it. Hey,
that
look,
when
it's
that
my lovely
aircraft
wife.
when that aircraft is in autopilot, when they are coming into a potential collision with
Like an
another
incursion-
aircraft.
incursion path or whatever.
Yeah, if they're on a path of collision, the equipment automatically detects that and they divert the aircraft. So one will
So
go
almost
up,
an autopilot type.
right. So one will climb and one will descend or whatever. They find a way to avoid the collision, and part of that comes from this signal that they broadcast.
Transponder type thing. Huh?
Right.
Okay.
And so it's my understanding that the ADS-B is part of that. It's so that those passenger aircraft that are equipped with that equipment can detect that small 172 that's out buzzing around at 3,500 foot, and they can avoid them.
Okay.
And so there's a push. It's my understanding that all the full-scale aircraft, with only a few exceptions, are mandated to be equipped with ADS-B by a certain time period. Well, now, and then the other thing, the other elephant in the room is, of course, Amazon. I mean, a lot of people like Amazon.
Elephant in the room.
Well, it's the drone delivery. And the drone deliveries, they want some of this airspace as well.
Right.
You know, so
But I think they could operate in the 0 to 500 foot range almost.
well, and that's where the FAA wants us to operate.
400 feet ceiling.
But in
400
that,
foot
No,
ceiling. huh?
hold on. Here's where my problem lies. If we're standing on the ground, can you look up and tell me where 400 feet is?
There's not a person in the world that can tell you that.
Up into the air? Yeah, no, you can't.
No, but that's where it's just a lot of people that don't. Even the people writing the rules here, I just don't know that they fully understand what our hobby entails.
Well,
They don't.
The fear that we have is our flying field is in direct path of an Air Force base.
Oh yeah, you see E3s at Charles Place all the time.
I'm talking close up and personal.
Yeah.
I mean, I mean, they look a lot closer than they are. I mean, they're probably.
Well,
You're talking about a
you
big
get
airplane.
A lot closer than most.
Well, I mean, they're still probably 1,500, 2,000 feet, and we don't. You know, hey, if it's there, everybody brings it down. But I think that's going to bring bad
juju.
Just bad publicity to us because.
But
we're in contact. I mean, there's
here's
days
my problem,
they tell us no flying these days because this is what's going on at the Air Force base.
Well, when I actually started flying because it was at an Air Force base, I knew that, hey, I need to call the tower, and this is what I'm doing, and letting you know.
You actually called the tower when you
I
first
actually
started?
called, and they were like, hey, man, we
got you.
We know
you're
it's there. It's good.
We got people watching.
Hey.
Right, exactly. And, it's like, hey, no need to call. You show up out there, you fly. You're
Well,
fine.
the deal I'm getting at is if
I have personally called
the tower.
the tower out at
Well, that's
the
what
Air
he
Force
just said.
base
Yeah.
locally, and they said there's no need to call. We know you're
We
there.
know you're there.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's
We know you're there. There's no need to call.
so.
And
let-
they only come directly over depending on the winds. I mean, it's not constant, but
here's
if
let's
they're in a right hand pattern, they're coming over.
let's also address this too, though. And traditionally speaking, flying model airplanes, model helicopters, gliders, all of those things, you had to be at an open space, a field, and typically speaking, not always, but typically speaking, people flew at clubs. And if you're a full-scale pilot and you're familiar with the area that you're at, you typically have an idea like, hey, those guys fly over there.
Right.
I'll give you an example. At my field in Duncan, I'm also friends with a local crop duster that flies out of Paul's Valley. And he told me, he said, yeah, y'all have a really nice place over there. He's like, I've been by there several times. And
probably give y'all a show while he's at it.
Yeah, but Donnie, he knows about it. He
Right.
knows not to get down into that area. And likewise, we know if we see an ag airplane come by, we need to avoid that guy.
Right.
Because he may not see us.
Well,
He's got a lot
Called
going
right
on.
away.
Well, isn't Lindsay
Full scale
Isn't
always
Lindsay?
has right away.
Isn't it at the airport?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Their flying field is at the airport in Lindsay. So I mean,
Yeah,
I think it's a
official,
no tower.
unofficial.
I don't think there's a tower there.
Yeah, there's not a tower, but I promise you, if there's somebody flying remote controlled, there's a radio on the ground.
Oh yeah.
Oh, is there? Okay,
Absolutely.
Oh yeah. They
Okay.
have the handhelds and
like
stuff
a
like that.
scanner type.
You're right, exactly. But the thing about it is
Clay.
people knew about these places, and they knew, the full scale guys knew. Just like you said, you guys called to the Air Force Base, and they said, "Hey, we know you guys are there."
Right.
Okay, here's where the problem come from: is the guy that's over there on 10th Street that goes out in the front of his yard, and he fires this thing up, and he goes up 1,600 foot.
Right.
That they don't know he's
All
there.
bad.
Right. And that's
That-
what I'm saying.
that's the
guy
problem.
that went and bought, you can buy some hell of technology for a couple $100,
Which, man, I'll be real honest. I have definitely done some questionable stuff as far as like FPV stuff goes, long range stuff. I've
Okay.
definitely done it. But when I do these things, I have certain protocol in place. I'm not breaching that 400 foot.
Well, and the difference is how
You
to
know.
fly it. A lot of times people go, okay, push a button, okay, fire it, and
Uh,
boom, first flight. That's how much is gone.
right.
I'm
know
gonna
what I mean?
promise you that I have spotted for Casey. He's had goggles on, no clue what's going on around him.
Right.
I've spotted for him many times,
Right.
and
Oh, yeah.
will
It's
continue
done
to.
right. It's done
Well,
right.
That's
Well, man,
that's
absolutely.
how it's meant to be done.
Right.
That's the AMA guidelines at this point, is you're to maintain visual range, visual line of sight, and when you're doing FPV, you need a spotter to maintain that visual line of sight for you.
Speaking of AMA, aren't you local AMA executive? Kinda.
We hit on this a little bit. Yes, I am the
We're gonna have to
AVP for
edit this
Oklahoma.
out. This is going to have to be.
We ain't edited
You
nothing.
done had too
No.
much Kentucky Dale.
Golly.
Boy, that's just good.
Apparently.
So let me ask you this. Clay. Tell us about your background. Where did the RC, where did the aviation? You know, we talked at the break that, you know, for me being the age 5 or 6, man, when I got my first international paper airplane book,
Mm-hmm.
I was in, dude. I
Man, that
bet
was super cool.
I bet I have folded a ream of paper worth of paper airplanes. You know, so
Yeah.
where did your background come from?
Well, as many aviation enthusiasts probably will agree, and we talked about this during the break, I don't recall a time in my life that I wasn't obsessed with aviation. And being where I grew up at, near farming, southeast Arkansas, a lot of farming down there, it was ag. You know, ag aviation those were the coolest guys around. The guys flying crop dusters down low, and I thought that was just awesome. And then, of course, movies. I mean, as a kid,
So-
you know, Top Gun was king, you know, so.
Absolutely.
So, kind of a spiff here. We were talking about your fun fly coming up earlier, and one of the gentlemen that's going to be attending your fun fly, he was a former ag pilot.
Yes. You know Mike?
Oh, yeah, Mike and I are good friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mike is super good people. I guarantee you. I think he's coming down Friday to your. I'm gonna show up Thursday, and he's coming Friday, I believe. But he's super good people, man. He's a whole lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah, Mike's actually part of our club now. He and I have been doing a little bit of flying together, and we worked out a deal where I'll be a member of the Baxter field and he'll be a member of the Duncan field.
Absolutely.
So
That's
That's
great.
awesome, man. Mike's good people, like
yeah,
Clint
he-
was saying, man.
he,
Yes.
he really is, and
And he'll be on eventually.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He's pretty
Man,
busy. He's a pretty busy guy.
He's busy, but I promise you, he's probably. I hope he's one of the next couple up.
I think we
I
can
think
get
that
him
can
on,
be arranged.
Yeah.
for sure.
But no, back to my background in aviation is, like I say, I was always loved it, always obsessed with it. Took my first plane ride. I was probably 8, 9 years old. My dad got a friend, took me out in a 172, got my first plane ride, and then the same friend, he owned a Champ later on. Took my first lesson when I was about 16.
Okay.
And so I was always into it, and went to college, went through a 4-year program for aviation business and all that. Of course, didn't pan out to where I work in the aviation business. I work in the pipeline world, but I've always had that passion, and I always had that interest and that drive. So about 10 years ago, things just started to kind of line up for me where I always had the interest in RC, but just never could make it happen. And about 10 years ago is when it really started kind of coming together for me, and just been way into it ever since.
Right.
I mean,
So
it's
you've been
just,
flying for about 10 years?
I've been flying RC for about
Where'd you
10
start?
years.
Did you start on the typical 40 size trainer or with the something
No, man.
electric? Or?
To be completely honest, and Clint's probably gonna put his earmuffs on over here, but Park Zone P51 Ultra Micro. Yeah, that was my.
Dude,
Nothing wrong with that.
those
Yeah.
things fly. So I've got one.
Yeah.
I've had
So-
one for about,
I-
it's probably 10 years
That's-
old. or so.
Again, my into the hobby and everybody else is into the hobby is completely different.
Yeah. So
I don't hold that against you, man. That's great.
So here's another, and this is a question. So my dad wasn't like Clint's dad was into the hobby, kind of, flew. My dad never was. I mean, he was into it, and he exposed me. Like I kind of started as a kid, paper airplanes, and then when I was young, we used to fly free flight, stick a tissue rubber band in the Oklahoma City Armory. Did that for years.
man,
Control line when I was a kid was big in the early 80s. It was still thriving pretty good. But I couldn't really afford RC till I was grown.
yeah.
So was your dad?
It was
something you? Is it something you and your dad did together? Or
No, my story is very similar to yours. So my dad was a catfish farmer back when that was a thing.
Okay.
And, catfish farming is nearly extinct now. If you
Everything's coming from
if you grew up
overseas,
in
you know?
Mississippi or Louisiana or Arkansas, you know what I'm talking about. But so my granddad and my dad, they were both catfish farmers when I was a kid, and so we had a little bit of land. And my dad's cousin, him and some of his buddies, they flew model airplanes. And my dad, having some tractors and equipment and whatnot, he built them a field. Yeah, he built them a runway out at our farm, and so I got to be around it. But now I was a little kid at this time.
Right.
I'm like 5 years old, 6 years old, but I was exposed to model airplanes then.
That's all it takes.
Somewhere along the time period of about 10 years old, Dad bought the first airplane I ever had actually was a Goldberg Eagle 2. Had an ASP 40 on it, and I had a
That's a lot of people's first airplane.
I had a Futaba Conquest and all this, but I never learned to really fly it. Now, keep in mind, this is the day and time period where simulators were like on DOS. And
it was like who had that first?
The very first Dave Brown.
It was Dave Brown. Yeah, Dave Brown had that first one like that.
Absolutely.
We didn't even own a computer at home to play. You had to go to the hobby shop, which the hobby shop was like an hour from our house. And that
So
was
no
the only
buddy boxing? Was it just to pass the controller? Or did you have a buddy box cord? And
We had buddy box, but there again, it just didn't really pan out to. And Dad, he didn't fly, but he tried to facilitate it as well as he could, but he definitely tried and definitely helped. And we just, like you said, we didn't really have the money to buy a lot of stuff.
right.
Keep in mind, today it's actually much cheaper to get into the hobby than it was in that time period.
Absolutely.
And so we just didn't really have the money for it. And so I tried to get into it when I was 10, 11 years old, whatever it was. And then I had some friends that flew when I was in high school. I had my friend, they still fly actually, and we still talk quite often.
Are these guys in Louisiana or are they in Arkansas?
Arkansas. So I actually grew up in Arkansas, but I went
Where
to
at
college in
Arkansas did you
Louisiana. Town of Crossett. And Crossett is the southeast corner of the state, near Hamburg. Just north of.
Southeast. So you was on the other. You was closer
Oh,
to
yeah.
Tennessee.
No. It's close to Mississippi and Louisiana.
Oh, way down south.
Way down south, yeah.
Okay.
15 minutes from Louisiana. So anyway, so I flew with those guys a little bit, when I was in high school. Still didn't really have the money for it, And also at that age, you got other things, you're learning to drive. You got your first vehicle, we had
Girls.
four-wheelers.
So much.
Yeah,
anyway.
Girls hanging out,
yes.
partying. Yeah.
So it's a tough time
I
period.
think we've all agreed that was kind of the lull. For me it was,
Yeah,
Yeah.
me too, man. I'm saying that.
from
Same.
15 through 18. Well, probably 20.
Yeah, at least 21.
Yeah.
So, and then, so fast forward a few years, go to college. I'm in college. I'm in the aviation program. And and it's funny. So I worked at this home medical place, and I delivered like beds, oxygen,
Right.
equipment, home medical
Yeah.
equipment, right? So I got this old oxygen van, what we called it, and I'm driving this thing around, and there was a hobby shop opened up in the town where I was working at, and I would just cruise over there, and I'd waste like an hour or so, and
Right.
I'd just go in there and just play on the simulator. And I
Right.
just so
The
I
real
did,
flight. It was real flight by that time,
Oh,
right?
it was real flight, probably
2 or
like
something like that?
No, we're probably up to like 5,
Okay.
maybe. I don't know, whatever. About 10 years ago, 11 years ago, and so I was in there just playing around on the sim, and then I'd look around the store, and always like, man, I wish I could do that. Wish I could buy one. Didn't really have the money, but then I saw the Ultra Micro P51. And it was $115 with everything in the box, like we talked about a little bit
Transmitter,
ago.
battery, yeah.
It's a little cheesy transmitter.
It works.
But it worked, and it was enough. And I tell you what, it set the hook. And I went out to a local RC track because at this time, like, I don't know anything about clubs and fields and what
RC.
all this.
You're like, oh, RC, yeah.
And they're like, yeah, you guys can fly around here. That's fine. So we're out there, me and a couple buddies that are also into it at this point, and then we got on to so we moved from that over to the foam board type airplanes, much like what Flight Test is doing now, but Flight Test didn't exist back then.
But like the little Delta wing stuff, and
Yeah, well, our favorite was the Blue Dart, and so the fan fold insulation was the big thing.
the blue.
You went down.
I used to play with that stuff a little bit.
Yeah, you go down to Lowe's and you buy this bundle of foam.
Fan fold. That's what it was.
And then we'd go online and we'd print these plans out and we'd tape the pages together, lay it on the foam, and box cutter and hot glue, and we're in business and we're buying cheapo motors and stuff. But you know what? It's what got me going. It's what got me started.
Let me ask you this: Do you miss the? I find myself really missing just the. I think I had some of my best fun with that kind of stuff.
I will say I had a load of fun, but it wasn't because of the airplane. It was because of my friends that I was hanging out with.
Yeah. Okay.
We had so much fun, and it was so carefree too.
That's what I'm saying.
We would build these cheap things that we're just like, you know what? If I tear it up, I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna spend about 3 hours and I'm gonna build another one.
It cost me $3.
That's
and,
it.
And we would go up and we would chase each other and we would just crash these things into each other, and we just had a load of fun.
Oh man, yeah.
Man,
But the hobby's changed for me now.
It has. It's a lot more serious.
But
I guess what
it truly is.
Here's my problem. Is one of the most fun things in the world is taking somebody's. As advanced RC pilots, we help people.
Right, naturally.
And
if you want to know what being sponsored's about, that's it.
Absolutely.
Being sponsored is not about being a great pilot. It's not about.
It's about helping.
Yeah,
It's about doing this right here.
Yep.
Having a great time, talking about what you're doing, etc. But one of the most fun things is taking an old Eagle 60 or Eagle 40 or Cadet, SIG Cadet, whatever.
SIG Senior.
And absolutely, and shooting some touch and goes.
Oh yeah.
I mean, as an advanced pilot, somebody who's flying World War I or flying 3D or flying whatever, one of the most fun things is stopping, taking a step back to flying an old rubber banded on wing, dihedral.
So and
just doing tricycle gear touch and goes.
I've got to agree with him on this, and the reason I say this is we've got a member in our club, Frank Baker. I think he's 80 this year, and you never see this guy without a smile on his face. But he has a Cadet Senior.
I hope he shows up.
Oh, he will be there. He'll be there with his ticket book.
Perfect.
He's our safety guy.
He the ticket master.
Yeah,
perfect.
All right. There's a whole backstory to that. We might get into it. We might not. But
all right.
anyway, he's a hoot. And anyway, so Frank he has a SIG Senior, and he'll bring it out to the field just so that I can fly this thing, because it turned into almost a joke. This thing's got like a OS 52 4-stroke on it. It just sits there and purrs like a kitten, runs perfectly.
Doesn't burn any fuel.
No.
You can fly it for an hour if you wanted to.
I think the receiver battery will die before this thing runs a tank of fuel through it.
Right.
So
I'm in.
Does he bring a bag of number 8 rubber bands with it?
No, he's
Is
a
he
builder,
gonna bring
so
it
he
to the
converted
fun
it to it's bolt on.
Bolts? Okay.
Yeah, he's
Perfect.
And he put ailerons on it and all this too. But the funny thing is, so we're paid runway, so we'll pull this thing up to a crack in the runway just as a measuring point, haul a full up elevator from idle to
Some
full
stall
throttle
kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, just pull it up, just slam it full throttle. This thing pops a wheelie, rides a wheelie for about 6-7 foot, and then just lifts off just as nice and pretty as you can. And then we just do touch and goes with this thing. Just
beautiful.
One after the other. And we have so much fun doing that.
That's one of the things that we're talking about doing for the podcast here is I've got engines out the caboo. 4-stroke, 2-stroke, whatever. I've got servos out the caboo. All we need is an airframe. For an old school trainer like that. Not only for us to fly and have fun with, but for the
spectator.
The spectator. Yeah, somebody wants to fly it, let's go fly.
Just an old beater, a scrap pile.
All right.
Absolutely.
I got a challenge for you guys.
Uh-oh. I love challenges.
All right. This is non-original. This is not Clay Ricks' idea. This came from another podcast I used to listen to. And they took an airplane and they put multiple receivers in it. And Clint has the ailerons. Casey's got the elevator.
Do like a five person airplane.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
one receiver's elevators, and one's ailerons, and one's rudder, and one's throttle.
I mean,
Oh yeah,
The
yeah.
multiple pilot
Boy.
challenge.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I've heard this is incredibly difficult to make work.
It's kind of like the old blind driver and the navigator race car, you know, where, hey, turn left. Or
yeah.
I watched one. Hey, I saw one the other day that they took the car and turned everything backwards. So when you turn left, you're actually going right.
Right.
That looks difficult.
Well, that's kind of what he's talking about.
Right,
man.
right.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
you just
I'm
have to
in.
be in communication, right?
Hey,
absolutely.
I'm no seer into the future, but I can hear Clint yelling, "I got nothing! I got nothing! I got nothing!"
Yeah, so we'll have to
Man.
be in
hang
that
on,
story.
hang on.
Story. Have you heard this story?
No, but
Well,
I've got to know: are we going to get into radio bashing? Because
No.
because I'm just
Absolutely
going
not. No, no, no,
So
no, no.
hey, no.
It has nothing
Let's
to-
stop. So you picked up on that, right?
to. Yeah.
The spectrum. I got the spectrum.
Well, here's
What
the
do you
funny
fly?
thing. Yeah, what do you fly?
IX20.
You're a spectrum guy.
I'm a Spectrum.
Yep.
I started out with Spectrum, and I've just stuck with it. With the caveat of the Conquest I had back,
Well, right. but
25 years
you know,
ago.
None of that shit was. all
Spectrum
that-
didn't
No,
exist.
we're talking about 2.4. We're not talking about
No,
Sim 2.
since I've been flying, like really actively flying, I've been on Spectrum. Went from the little game controller that came with the Ultra Micro
Right.
to a DX5
Well, and, yeah,
to a
that just
DX6i
kinda- and
to a DX18 and
I was
now
Spectrum.
IX20.
I like Spectrum for my little foamies, but I got Futaba for my bigger stuff. He's Futaba and Gropner.
Yeah.
He's Tyrannus.
Yeah, I'm the elephant in the room on that deal.
Absolutely.
I fly FR Sky.
I've
Yes.
flown FR Sky whenever I dipped into quads for 6 months or whatever it was, and it's a cool setup.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever messed with any of it?
Nah, not really. No.
I mean, it's open.
I've-
It's open source type stuff. But
I've flown a few of them, but I've never programmed one. And the reason being was I feel like most people stick to what they know. And I learned
Right.
Spectrum because the people that I was flying with at the time, that's what they flew. So I bought Spectrum, and I learned it, and I've stuck with it. And it's always worked well for me. But
I will give you that.
so I'm gonna
Futaba's
tell you right
actually
now.
difficult to. Futaba's pretty difficult.
I'm going to tell you right now, the only thing I will bash, I will not bash Spectrum. I will not bash Futaba. I will not bash Gropner. I will not bash
FR
Tyrannus.
Sky.
Tyrannus.
FR Sky.
I'm not going to bash any of them because people have good luck with them. There's one thing in this world I will bash, and it's a DLE 20.
That's it.
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
so here's my take.
How do you feel about small CC gas motors?
I had a bad experience.
It's proven.
It's not
a proof.
It's a
It's
proof.
not necessarily the DLE 20. I'm not saying it's a bad engine.
No.
I'm just saying it doesn't have enough CCs to matter.
No, I'll say this. The DLA 20 is the only small engine that I had good experience with. The
Well,
small gas engine.
We got a story for that too.
Well, I've had my personal luck with the DLA 20 has been good, but
You're number 2 on my list.
I had a Sato gas and I had horrible luck. Now,
It's a converted? It was converted though.
no, it was it was a native gas. It was the FG14C.
Okay.
Again,
That was
under
about
20 CCs.
But
Under
now
30.
I hear a lot of guys have great luck with those now. I personally had bad luck.
So there's one. Actually, Casey's got one of that revolvers.
Yeah.
It's solid.
So far.
So far.
So he got a
But,
plane from
but
Mike Sterling that had
stop,
a 20 cc.
Stop. That's number 2 on the airplane.
Well-
The first one wasn't so good.
The one Mike had, dude, that thing ran flawless. Ran flawless
Every
for Mike.
time.
He ended up with the airframe with the motor flawless. He sold it to a kid.
1 hour wonder.
1 hour, 20 minutes.
Dude, it was shorter
And
than
I say 1 hour because it took him an hour to get it bound up and get the receiver.
Yeah, he's a
you know.
Spectrum guy. He's a naysayer on the Spectrum.
No,
And
sir,
whatever.
I'm not. Because they have their spot.
But anyways, this kid buys this. What was that? A Pilot 30cc Pilot.
It was a 20cc.
20.
Pilot.
20cc
Yeah.
Pilot.
DLE
300.
20. Yuck.
Beautiful airplane. Flew flawlessly every time I ever seen it. He buys it,
Boat anchor.
gets it, and man, he gets comfortable with it real quick.
Yeah, you've seen the plane fly. You've been out there before.
Yeah,
I was going to say, I feel
it's
like I've seen
Mike's.
this.
It was that Pilot. Was it an S-Box? Not an S-Box.
No, it was an extra 300.
I was going to say, I
300.
was thinking it's an extra, yeah.
So this, never once did I ever hear that motor stumble.
Motor didn't stumble, didn't sputter.
He was in a
did
hover
nothing, would
about 20
start,
feet off the ground,
and it
and
quit.
it went, meh. Didn't, but nothing. It just went from running great to nothing. Destroyed that airplane 20 minutes after buying it.
Oh, wow. Well, I'm just going to, I don't know what you want to call it, but I will put it like this. I've had good and bad luck with all of them at different times. And I just feel like they're all man-made, in my opinion, and they all can have their problems, and they can all be good.
And
I have
it's
my
not-
preferences, but I'm not going to tell anybody, hey,
So
what you have is
we
absolute
No,
garbage.
We briefly touched on this. So your preference is a GP?
I would
No
say
money,
an
no
even.
money.
Mine's,
We're not talking about dollars here.
No dollars.
You have a DA on
Are
your
you a
Mamba.
DA, a GP, a
I have-
DLE, DLA?
I have more DAs than anything, but
Man, you can't beat
Now,
a DA.
let me ask you this. Did you acquire all those DAs before GP really came on the scene?
no,
Okay.
I didn't.
So you prefer a DA?
No, GP was well on the scene when I got into gas, for that matter, and I'm not going to say I preferred DA. At the time, I'll say this: like my DA 70, I bought it before the 76 existed.
Okay.
My second DA 70, I bought it because I found a good deal on it, basically, and I could get it for less money than a GP at that time. So that's why I bought
That's
it.
why I have a DA 150.
Yep. So I like DAs. I like GPs. I've never owned a ZDZ, but I've heard nothing but good about them.
I'm going to tell you right now, Jason Duran is a good dude.
Yeah.
And he doesn't sell junk.
Have you had any of his batteries yet?
No, I haven't.
So I bought that Timber I have, that 110.
Mm-hmm.
I bought 4 5006S
Of the A powers.
A powers.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious to see how those are. I mean, I've not heard nothing but good, but I've not.
No.
I've got a
personally know anybody.
ZDZ 97 from him, and it's flawless.
Yeah. Mike's got that ZDZ 195, I think it is.
197.
On that 40%?
whatever it is,
Yeah, it's the big one. I was thinking 195, but I've heard nothing but good about ZDZ. I just personally have never bought one. I will say the only engines that I really have had a lot of trouble out of have typically been DLEs. But on the same note, I've had really good luck with some too.
Right.
So it's
They're hit or miss kind of.
It's been more hit or miss for me, and I know guys
So-
out there that have had nothing but great luck with them. So it's just
He's got your best luck's been with DLAs, right?
Absolutely.
Have you ever heard of DLA?
oh yeah. I mean, I've heard of them.
Yeah.
I have no personal experience with them.
Well,
I've
they're
got
big,
a handful of them, dude.
Nothing he has doesn't run like a top.
Yeah.
Everything he
I
has is
didn't-
tuned right. First of all,
Well, right, and it's not exactly about the engine; it's about the tuning.
right.
And the carburetor accepting the tuning.
I will say that with the DLEs, the problem that I always found out was I had bad luck with the carburetors. And whenever
Right,
I
you
would
gotta
change the
put a
carburetors
Walbro.
out to a
Walbro.
Walbro, I had almost no problems
Okay.
after that point.
Okay.
So,
That's always that's the same advice I've always heard you give to.
yeah.
Just order a $30 Walbro carburetor.
Yep.
And I think one of the things too with like the DLE 20, there's not a lot of people that make a small cubic inch motor.
Yeah, you've got more than you think,
cubic
actually.
centimeter. Yeah.
You've got RCGF, Valley View RC, DLE.
Well,
Hey,
what's Valley Views? I mean, I'm thinking those are all just rebadged.
No, they're
Somethings.
not. They're
No.
not.
They're not?
I've been in contact
So
with
Valley
View.
View's got somebody
They're-
casting
Yep,
their motor.
they're their own deal.
Really?
Well, they make engines that nobody else makes, like a
Weird
30,
CC sizes.
like a 30 twin, for instance.
Right. Yeah, they do some entertaining
Now,
smaller sizes.
I will say this about you, Clint. Though you're up for a small CC twin.
Absolutely.
Now-
As
So
long
you
as
think-
it has a Wahlberg carburetor.
Okay.
And that's something else I'll back up to is I do prefer twins, and
All day long.
yeah, twins in my opinion typically run so much smoother and more reliable. So
Dude,
I
didn't-
like twins.
We hand built a third scale D7.
Right.
I didn't fly it in 1 year's time,
Right.
and we went straight up.
That is that a DL?
That's a DLA 116 inline.
Have you heard this thing?
I thought I saw the video. I'm not sure if I've seen
Man,
the D7.
you gotta hear this motor though.
Man,
It's not about seeing a video. A video doesn't do it justice.
It doesn't do it justice. This motor just sounds.
No, actually, I think every time I've flown with Clint, it's been the DLA 112.
116.
No, what's the 4-cylinder boxer engine?
128.
Okay, that's it. The
Yeah.
128 then. Yeah.
Well, I'm just gonna tell you, I'm coming to Duncan, and I'm gonna bring Super 7.
Okay.
And we're
Is
gonna-
that all you're bringing?
No.
You gonna bring a hooker?
Man, I'm so on time with. I'm gonna bring the 4-cylinder.
You got to bring a hooker and let Clint
Yeah,
fly a hooker.
yeah. I'm
the
gonna
guy
let,
needs to fly a hooker.
man, do you bring Wino or do you bring the 4-cylinder?
Well,
Yeah.
well.
Well, Wino's bulletproof. I love
All
that
these
airplane.
airplanes have their name, and Wino is Wino because it's got a it's
Dude,
a purplish silver.
Oh, I know
and
that plane.
white.
Yeah,
It's
it's white and purple, and
It's a super
It's
smooth
a
airplane.
wine colored.
Yeah.
It's got a DLA 64 on it. It flies perfect.
Yeah, it's
I mean,
one of the it's one of your stagger wing biplanes.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yes,
sir.
Mhm.
And it's super fun. It's
And it had been flown. I mean, this year it's got some flight.
Yeah, we've been flying the hell out of it. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I mean, when I go to Duncan, I have two options.
Well,
In
you
my
got to
mind.
take a backup.
Man, I'm gonna take a Newport 17.
Yeah, that's true.
We
You got room,
We flew it at the Jonal and it was great.
and it hasn't been flown since,
Yeah, once.
has it?
Yeah. It's got a little, but here, everybody beats up on me for disliking the DLE 20. Man, it's got DLE 55 side exhaust on it. Runs great.
Those are awesome engines.
So
I
let me
will
ask
say.
you this: DLEs. What do you think about the RAs?
I don't.
Why you got to go there?
I haven't had that much
Because
experience
it's
with the RAs.
Well, Clint has.
You know, I've been around some of the 35s, but I've never owned a
So,
35.
I have a Bill Hempel decathlon with a 35 RA on it, and the fucking muffler won't stay on it.
Yeah, but I've had that same trouble with side exhaust too at different times.
I haven't.
Hey,
Yeah.
my DLE 20 is an RA, and the muffler stays on it fine. It just doesn't
So
always
far.
run right.
Well, so I
far.
quit having muffler problems when, and I'm not gonna say I had a lot of muffler problems, but I've had them come loose on me. But Terry Wiles, if I'm not butchering his name too much,
No, you're not. That's an awesome dude. He's gonna do a prop for me for my green airplane.
yeah. So he's got a video out there. I think it may be part of the RC Tech series that he put out, and he talks about muffler prep. And once I started doing what he talks about in this video, I quit having problems. That's just my that's been my experience. But I haven't messed with RAs, so
The deal is, so he's like you said, he's got the Hempel. I got sidetracked. You touch he can tighten it up, lock tight and everything. 2 or 3 flights in, the muffler bolts.
falling off.
I'm not a believer in Loctite on an exhaust.
Nope.
I've tried to talk him into put some spacers in, get the heads out a little bit, put some safety wire on them.
Here's what I do, and I follow. I'm not going to say exactly what Terry talks about, but I try to get close. And the first thing I do is I take the mufflers, and I've got a pretty flat bit desktop that's
Right.
in my shop,
Oh, well,
And I
the
take
glass is gone now. That'd have been perfect.
and I just
No,
take
it
some.
ain't
I
gone.
take some sandpaper, and I sand the face of the muffler
Right.
because you think that's flat until you put it on a block, and then you'll see little imperfections. So I sand that muffler face down. Then I prep it with. I prefer Permatex copper, and I'll put my Permatex copper on it.
Absolutely.
You don't use the paper gasket.
No, I quit
Throw it in
using
the
those.
trash.
Right.
Yeah, I quit using those because that's when I started having the muffler leaks. So I go to the Permatex copper, and I dab it on there like he shows in the video, and then I take the muffler bolt itself, and I just put a little bit of that copper on the threads, that Permatex copper, right on the threads, and then I thread it in there. I don't like Loctite, especially blue, for mufflers because if you actually look into red Loctite even, it's the way it's meant to be released is with heat.
Right.
Well, what do you have there? You have a lot of heat.
Exactly.
Right.
So my thought process is, and I could be totally wrong, but that becomes a thread lubricant. When it becomes liquid,
It does.
it gets that heat, it gets a lubricant,
Absolutely.
so now it wants to back out because it's got less
Makes total
resistance.
sense.
Yeah, it's coming out no matter what.
So that's why I don't go to Loctite on mufflers. I just use the Permatex. And he recommends the Norlock washers. I haven't gotten to try those yet because I just haven't spent time to go find them. But,
The only engine, and I'm not beating up on DLE, not one bit. But the only engine I've had problems with, a muffler coming loose, is the 35 RA.
yeah. And now I'm going to ask the obvious question. You balance the prop, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
About
See,
3 different ones.
Yeah. So
And it
are you running wood or carbon? What's your
I've
preference?
tried both.
Yeah.
here's the real shitty part of it. You can't tighten them up without pulling the cowl and the motor. And
Yeah, I agree with that.
Well, I say that. So I stopped by the flying field yesterday and visited Larry, our old timer,
yeah.
and this gentleman was out there. He's about our age. He has a son, this 12, 13, 14, somewhere in there, and he has a DLE 35 RA. He has a DLE 35 RA.
I know the kid. The
You know
kid's
who
a
you're
hell of
ta-
a pilot.
Oh, he's gonna be
Yeah.
for sure.
Oh man, yeah.
I mean,
Right,
sure enough.
Right.
And he said, "Man, you warned me about that muffler coming off, but you didn't warn me about the engine falling off."
Huh?
Right. So I guess they were out there the other day, and the motor fell off, and he couldn't. He didn't have enough. He was flying with a DX6, and he didn't have enough channels to hook up the ignition kill.
Ooh.
Right. So he had to fly the motor out of fuel because he couldn't get it slow enough to land.
Yeah. So that's something that I'm pretty adamant on is being able to shut that engine off, whether it be by
right.
electronic or by shutting the carb or something.
Right, exactly. So I give the father of this young man credit because he immediately bought the son a IX12, maybe, or something along those lines, so they could get to the channel of turning the ignition off.
Well, even at a bare minimum, you can do the throttle cut where you pull the carburetor closed. I mean, that's the
Right,
old.
just
That's
temporary close for
yeah, like that's what I do with the glow engines where you don't
Right,
have the
right, where
option
you
of
just
electronic kill.
throttle cut. It shuts the carburetor for 3 seconds and.
Well, a lot of times I'll do it on a momentary switch, so it's as long as I hold the switch
Okay.
down.
Okay.
But yeah, that's
But
a big
at the
safety
end of
thing.
The day, the motor fell off the airplane, ruined the cow.
Do you think it was vibrational? I don't.
I don't know.
All right.
I've had the same thing happen to me. I beat up on DLE.
Here's my deal. The motor falling off to me.
It's not a motor. That's
It's
that's
totally
bad
preventable.
installation.
Did the firewall come loose? Did the mount?
I beg to differ.
But no.
No,
It's totally accessible. If you
I
got to
don't-
double nut the backside, I mean,
So
Here's
my
a-
problem with the DLE 35 RA,
you think they vibrate too much?
absolutely. So I don't care how well you balance the prop. The engine has 8 bolts that bolt it to its standoffs in the firewall.
Yeah, that's where I was going to go with that.
It does not. So what I
8.
did,
Yeah.
8. It has 4 coming in the back to the standoffs, and then 4 coming in from the front for the motor.
it doesn't have through bolts
Oh,
on
I
it,
would do through bolts.
Right.
I would do
So-
through bolts all the way.
Well-
but it's not set that way. It's not the standoffs are not made that way.
The standoffs
Well,
aren't
you
made that way.
get you some standoffs that are through bolts.
You
No.
just get your drill press and run
Listen,
through 'em
well,
and fix it.
whatever you got to do, but
Yeah.
Well, so I had the only engine I've ever had fall off was a DA35, and it wasn't on my airplane.
Small CC.
Yeah, it wasn't on my airplane, but it was a plane that I put together, and I was flying it when it happened. And what it was is the bolts that go through the firewall and into the standoffs, they had backed off.
Right.
And one of the things that it's easy to do, and I've been guilty of this in the past, is you actually if you over tight it, you crush the plywood. You can over tighten them too much,
Right.
and you can crush that plywood, and then when the engine's up there torquing and moving around, you can get a little bit of slop in it. And I agree that it's because they're not through bolts. I think the through bolts, I've not had any trouble with that on my twins, but on my twins, they're all made to run standoffs with through bolts, and I use nylock nuts on the backside.
Right. Nylock nuts or double nut, whatever.
So that's how I did my 35 this last time. The muffler fell off. Is I took the standoffs and I drilled them out for a through bolt. So I hadn't flown an airplane since, and maybe after the fun fly I'll drag it out. But
I mean, to me, just my thought
But if
process.
the
I've been an aircraft mechanic for 25 years. That 8 bolt. That's why. Why? Why? You know what I mean?
I can't answer that. I didn't design it.
I mean, you're doubling the chances of something coming loose.
Yeah.
Well,
There again, that's just how it is. We didn't design it, and if it were my design, it wouldn't be that way.
Right.
So.
Well, and I guess some people are maybe kind of like, well, this is how it's supposed to be, so let's do it. To me, I would definitely ream those standoffs off and through bolt for sure.
That's
why I had a hard time understanding that, because I'm thinking a through bolt with a nylock nut, or
No, they're just, and that's just it. Is they're little small bolts, and they just thread
like
into
number 10s or number M4s or whatever they are. M6s
I think they're 6 millimeter. A lot of times 6 millimeter quarter 20 seems to be the kind of the standard. But all you got on there is a lock washer, and that's it. And I like to use grade 8 washers.
The locks.
No, I use the grade 8 flat washers to put on the firewall just to spread that load out a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't typically. It's definitely with the through bolts. I don't really worry about lock washers. I just use the grade 8s so that they don't cup and crush.
Right.
And then I put the nylon nuts on them.
Nylon nuts. That's all you really need.
Yeah, that's it. And it's just more difficult with the singles.
Right.
When you're talking about especially the 35s and the 30s and stuff like that. But definitely, when I have done them, I've used Loctite. But it's not a foolproof deal.
Well,
none
of it is. I mean,
no.
Yeah. You got to maintain your stuff.
Right. Absolutely.
I mean, I can't say that I'm one that every time I check my stuff, but you got to be vigilant, maintain your equipment, and
it is a safety deal.
Make sure you're not about to enter disaster. You know what I mean?
My little 20cc revolver does every bit of 100 plus. You know what I'm saying? And that's a missile. You got you got to make sure that everything's nice and safe.
So is yours a through bolts, or how's yours set up?
Mine's beam mount.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
that's
20
cc.
The 20s work like glow engines.
The green D7 in the video. I took it apart at the flying field that day and went through it. Checked every bolt in it. Let's go.
Mm-hmm.
Motor hadn't been running a year.
It fired up. You got about 15 seconds of full throttle, and then send it.
So
Full send.
That's one thing when you fly the planes like Clint and I fly, and I'm not excluding you guys because I just don't know what you guys fly exactly, but when you fly the size planes that we do, you better inspect them.
Well,
you better check stuff out.
You have to.
Because
not only
it's a
for your
safety issue.
investment, but for
It's a
safety for anybody.
It's a safety issue.
That's
Right.
what's that green D7 weigh?
45 pounds.
Yeah, that out of control goes to a windshield somewhere.
Bad deal.
Bad deal.
Bad deal.
Well,
I don't want it.
Dude, that could total a Kia.
Well,
I'm just
right.
saying.
I mean, yeah, that'll total 2 smart cars.
Yeah.
Right.
Hey, speaking of this, is totally off subject. So the other last weekend, my son they had some Corona car meetup thing over here at the old mall parking lot, Crossroads.
He'd take the short. He'd take
Well,
the square body.
oh yeah, we took that. I ain't bullshitting you. You know the little bitty Fiat, the little. It's not a smart car, but it's a
The
little.
500, I think.
Right.
It's
right.
a Fiat. Dude, this thing pulled up and it's like.
Was it turboed?
It had dude, had a hell of a blow off. It blew my
Wow.
mind.
I'm gonna tell you right now, the square body we put together sounds right.
Oh yeah, that's
Even if
fun
it is one wheel wonder,
It's a one. It'll lay down some rubber for 50 feet.
That's
one
cool,
tire.
man. You get a little more tire action on that. You just rotate it side to side.
Well, that's what kind of.
Man,
I'm proud of the boy.
I gotta give Gavin credit on that, man. He don't want to buy tires,
No,
and I guarantee you, we laid down some rubber the other
he
night.
said your turn. He said no. Those $250 a piece
$250
nettos.
a
Yeah.
piece. I'm out.
That's
Boy,
funny.
sure, Al Motor sounds great.
Oh yeah, it's a good running car. But
Yeah.
Well, man, sounds like a good place to tie us up. Clay, man, we really appreciate you coming on, man. You guys check us out. Come down to Duncan, man, if you get a chance, man.
Absolutely.
I'll make sure and get an
I'm
address and
excited.
everything down in the show
I'm
notes.
excited to check it out for
Yep.
sure.
And, man, you've got some really good prizes that you guys are giving away, is like door prizes, raffle prizes, and things
Oh
like that.
yeah, I've done claim ownership to one of them. What
Right.
else you got?
Well, man,
Wow.
I'm gonna bring something down to add to the mix, man. It's an older, foamy that's profile and everything like that. It's brand new in the box. It's been out of production for 7 or 8 years. So something cool you guys can give away for the
Just
raffle
another
from the
little
scrap
something,
pile,
right?
man.
Right.
Oh, awesome. We really appreciate that. I will say the raffle, we typically do a huge raffle every year. And this year with the current economy,
It's hard.
You know, if any of you listeners out there are not in Oklahoma, Oklahoma's a big oil field state. And
It's hit us hard, yeah.
yeah, it's really has.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So anyway, with the current economy and then also with the COVID-19 and us not really knowing early on how things were going to pan
Well,
out,
so-
we didn't really pursue the raffle like we typically do. So we're really playing it low key this year. And thanks to guys like Casey and I'll throw another couple are Benny Barnhill. He's the one that reached out to me about the Skywing 48-inch laser, which I personally
Perfect
have.
for electric setup.
Yeah, it's
That's
awesome.
Perfect.
I've got
trying for a
yeah. Well, I personally have the Skywing 60-inch laser and the 89-inch Skywing laser. Both of those are phenomenal airplanes.
Man, I'm just telling you right now, I can't wait to get down to Duncan.
No, it's gonna be good, man.
It's gonna be a good
weekend.
time.
So,
I'm gonna be down there on
just-
Thursday, so
I got a
hopefully
question burning in my head. So with the pandemic, whatever you want to call it, whatever you want to be, whatever it is, did you have to, before you went ahead and put full steam ahead, did you call? I mean,
No, we I put a couple feelers out there.
this is small town Oklahoma. This is kind of we could self.
Yeah, that was really my look at it. You know, I took a few kind of just looked around and seen,
Right.
okay, you know, there's things are opening up, so to speak, and you know, there's a lot of people still getting out and doing things.
Man, y'all
And-
planned it at the perfect
Well,
time.
we could self-police ourselves. It's
Yeah.
a small town. Everybody, it's kind of
Well,
you know.
I'm gonna
like
take
I said,
my trailer. I'm gonna sleep.
I took
Have
I took
fun.
a few things into account, but one of the things I did is I put a couple feelers out there just on our Facebook group and asked around and just got a feel for what people's mentality was. And the feedback
Everybody's
that I had
ready.
was like
They're ready.
everybody's just so eager to go fly.
They're so ready.
So I just decided to roll with it. And my club, they were fully supportive. You know, they
I mean, it's not going to be a Lake of the Ozarks thing, but
Maybe.
well,
well, we had 50 pilots there last year, and I mean,
I hope to double that this year.
the way it's looking,
That'd be
we
cool.
we may exceed that this year. I mean, it's
That'd
really
be
looking
cool.
that way. But no, I don't want to get too far off. We talked about the raffle, so we've got the Skywing 48-inch laser. Then one that hasn't been announced yet. You guys are the first to hear this. JR DFA, one of their team pilots, who's also on Team Flex with me, Kyle Rickaway. He reached out to me, and he's getting us a JR DFA T14 and a receiver.
Nice.
wow,
Man,
So-
that's a big giveaway.
That's
man.
a big
Wow,
one.
man.
Yeah, so-
absolutely.
So yeah, you guys are the first to hear it. So
That's awesome, man. I'm glad we could.
Maybe
release
I'm
that on
going to
the show.
retract my. I'm going to win the Skywing to I'm going to win that JR.
Right.
so
Man, Larry's called it before, folks. I wouldn't be surprised.
I've called it before once.
and then of course the big one for me, we'll have 3 Team Flex guys on site. We'll have the dealer Jason Reddish at Reddish RC. He'll
I
be
wanna
down there
meet that
selling.
guy. I just want to shake his hand and,
Yeah.
and
So
thank him for doing what he's doing.
Are there going to be like planes and stuff to purchase while you're down there? I mean, is Flex bringing a
Absolutely.
booth?
Flex is going to be
That's
set
awesome.
up for sale. Okay.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Reddish RC will be there selling Flex products. You'll have. He told me today he got in some Mamba 10, some QQ extras, some RV8s.
Maybe I'm going to have to go sell some plasma
batteries.
this week, huh?
So yeah, he'll have a trailer load of stuff to sell. And
Where are they out of?
Jason is out of Fayetteville, Arkansas.
Okay, so where's Flex out of?
They are in Florida.
Okay.
Nokomis, I believe, is
I
the
knew
town.
that. Right.
Yeah, they're down in South Florida. But anyway, Jason is bringing an RV8, which is extremely popular, and it's the green night version.
Okay.
And also we'll be giving away an Aura 8. So,
oh, wow. Okay.
Aura
Those
8.
are sold out everywhere. They're really hard to get a hold of.
I know
Aura
somebody's
8,
got
Honestly,
a couple.
haven't looked
Yep.
at. I actually haven't looked at the inventory, but we're getting.
Isn't that what you have on the?
No, I've got an. Are you talking about the Drac?
Yeah.
Shit.
It's an Eagle Tree Vector.
Oh, that's right. We decided.
Man, I don't know the Aura thing, man. I'm not there yet, man. I fly drones with stabilizers and stuff like that, but it's all turned off.
Right.
You know, so
Well, there's
I've got
a mission with
Man.
this.
right. If I've got something with GPS that if I were to run out of radio link or something like that, I want it to come back because
Right.
I've got camera equipment
Right.
and things like that on it. It's a little bit different deal.
So, one thing about the Aura that I'd like to mention that it typically is a misconception is the Aura is not a receiver. It's not a quote gyro in the traditional
It's
sense.
not a safe system.
It's not a safe system. However, it was designed by the same guy that developed Safe for Horizon.
Okay.
He left for Horizon. He now works for Flex.
I love the AS3X stuff.
Well, this is it's
More
not
along
the
that
same.
lines?
It's not the same stuff, but it's the same guy that originally developed Safe and AS3X, and it's just in my opinion, a better version of that.
Okay.
But it's a long. So what an Aura is most closely related to is a flight controller, like a flybarless system for a helicopter.
Okay.
That's the
Okay.
best.
Makes
Closest
sense.
thing I can relate it to.
Yep.
It's not a receiver. It's not a gyro in the, like a tail hole, heading hole gyro like you used to see on the helis. It is a full
Doesn't
flight
fly
controller.
it for you.
It does not fly
It
for
just
you.
takes out a little of the buffeting, little of the.
So
the
what's our
cross
average
wind.
wind speed in Oklahoma?
Oh,
What,
you're
12 to
lucky.
15?
Yeah.
If you're
You know-
flying a 15 to 20 mile per hour day,
That's
that's your average day.
that's
a good
what
day.
the Aura is for. If you watch a video from Flex, they're in the wind every time.
Right.
Okay.
And that's what an Aura is about.
Which it
is-
basically just holds the heading. Wherever
It
you
just
let
takes
off of
out the
stick,
buffeting.
it stays there.
no,
and
it takes out the
buffeting.
it takes out the rockiness. It
Yeah,
takes
the
out
buffet.
the buffet and
yeah,
it,
the
yeah,
you know.
it just smooths out the rough ride.
It's just a better.
But it
not
has.
saying better version, but it's the AS3X on steroids.
But to answer Casey's question, it has no heading hold really to it.
Right.
It's all about just smoothing out that bumpiness is what
Okay.
it's really about.
Well, like the best way, I've never flown an Aura, but the way I'm thinking about it is like my FPV drones. It's whatever stick input you give it, you go back to neutral. It's going to hold whatever that position is, which
No,
I don't think that's necessarily doing the same thing. But that's in my mind, that's what I'm thinking how it kind of works.
no, it doesn't. It
Right.
doesn't work like
So
that.
it's like it's like the AS3X where it doesn't. So I can take that little.
But it
I
doesn't
say-
have the. Well, let me
It doesn't
back
have
up.
the safe, but what I'm saying with that little timber,
Mhm.
it's a little 3-cell 20. I could take that up on a 15, 20 mile per hour wind day, and I'm not buffeting. I'm not. It's pretty solid. Like it's a 5 to 10 mile per hour.
So
day.
here's what most people relate it to if they've flown it, is it makes a little plane fly like a big plane.
Right.
Okay.
If you've have experience flying big planes, they're inherently more stable.
More stable.
no substitute for weight.
Right. And
Unless
that's
you got the Aura.
Aura makes it fly more like a big plane. That's the best way to put it.
That's the way I understand it.
It's one of those things that until you really experience it for yourself. I say don't knock it until you try it, and that's the best way to say it.
See,
Well,
that's
you got
I'm
people
not
that's-
going to knock nothing, but you got all these people out here who are going to.
It's not a gyro.
Well, it is.
It's not
Kinda.
a gyro.
It is, but it isn't. Yes, it's not a gyro in the traditional sense.
It's not a cheat. You still have to fly the airplane.
Oh, 100%.
You can still crash the shit out of that airplane.
You can ask me how I know.
So it's not. I mean, it's not a handicap. It's a helper.
You know,
Can you turn it on and off?
You can.
Can you? Okay.
You can.
Why you'd want to? I'm not real sure, but
You know, it's a personal preference thing, and but you know the way a lot of us team guys look at it is, and a lot of 3D guys treat it as it's a cheater, and that may be, but we're not competing here. We're having fun, and it makes me enjoy it. I enjoy it.
so
therefore,
that
what's the
brings up a
problem?
question when you say 3D guys. Has it been touched? You know, and I don't even know if there's 3D competitions anymore. If there's still that going on.
Like
you know.
XFC is about it, as far as I know.
You know, is it legal? Is it, you know, has it even been touched? It's not like it was 10 years ago where.
Well, the biggest problem is nobody wants to try to judge it because
It's hard to judge.
It's hard to judge, and then it becomes a favoritism thing.
It's absolutely a
Well,
opinionated.
Here's the deal: is no matter what, you're gonna piss somebody off.
Yeah.
Well, right.
And I mean, I'm not speaking for anybody at this table, but everybody is afraid to piss somebody off.
Oh, I'm not.
Yep.
Well, I mean, I'll go judge whatever I got to judge.
Well, it's hard to judge something that there's. I
But
mean,
I'm not.
It's not.
I
it's
don't
not,
want to.
Well,
I don't want to deal with it.
But when
even
you're talking
that's
about
the problem with pattern and IMAC these days. The judging criteria is so.
Hey, I'm as competitive as the next guy. What's wrong with going and having a good time?
A Huck Fest.
Go
Just a
Huck.
throwdown.
Okay,
Just
that's a good one. I'd like to ask this question.
All right.
What is a Huck Fest?
To
I got
me,
asked this
so-
question. The reason I bring it up is someone asked me this 3 days ago, and I sit there and I thought, well, I think I know what it is, but trying to put that into words and explain it to someone else.
So
let's
do you
just-
know who Billy Hell?
Billy
What's
Billy
his-
Hell.
Billy Hell. He was a Hobby Lobby. This may have been before your time. Billy. He's a Flying Giants guy now. He Pro Bowl or the Pro. How was it? Pro
Probos.
Profile Brotherhood. They had a big deal every year in Nashville. It was a fun flight.
Jim T. Graham.
Jim T. Graham.
Yeah, I've met him.
So he didn't call it a Huck Fest, but it was the Pro.
I'm
Bro
gonna tell
Pro.
you. I'm gonna
Pro
tell you
Bro.
right now. That is one of the absolute most successful RC hobbyists between the hobby and he's leatherworking, and he has so many things that he does that and on top of it, a super cool dude.
So getting back to that, which I don't think is in production, I've got a Mojo 40. It's a profile 3D.
Not
It's
sure if I've
nitro.
ever seen one.
Yeah, this thing's. I built this thing 15 years ago and it's still never flown. Anyways,
Yeah.
so a Huck Fest. To me, it's just a
Nash Bros.
jam session.
Nash Bros, ain't it? Isn't that what it's
Nash
called?
Bro, well, it's a Pro Bros. It was Profile Brotherhood in Nashville's where it was at. But these guys, it was a fun fly. It's just a jam session for RC. Instead of gathering with your buddies playing guitars and just, it's for RC guys, you know. So,
I agree, but that's a total different answer than what I had.
what was the answer you got for Huck Fest?
See, I took it to be more of just like a 3D bash type event where just
Just a throwdown.
yeah, just get out and just fly, you know, and just
Fly and is
See, that's my problem with fun flies these days. Everybody's trying to do a 3D Huck Fest or this or that. Man, just go fly.
Yeah.
Well, the 3D guys they're a different breed.
I
There's a lot of
agree.
destruction at the Huck Fest, in my opinion.
I have to tend to agree that some of it gets that way.
There's going to be some hovering over a bonfire at some point, stuff like that.
Maybe. Maybe. I'm not going to say I haven't seen it happen.
Some bottle rockets on the wingtips or Roman candles. Who knows?
I mean, I'm in,
Yeah.
but I'm gonna sit back and have a cold drink while y'all do it.
well, you're not a 3D guy.
Well,
Absolutely not.
and I'm not one of those 3D guys
But
personally.
not reckless. You're
No,
saying you're
not as reckless.
right,
No,
right.
no. I try to maintain safety for sure.
So,
But,
what was the conversation, if you don't mind me asking, about the Huck Fest thing?
I-
Because I haven't heard of a Huck Fest happening.
it
Tulsa
just,
used to have one every year.
well, at this point in time, Facebook is probably one of the biggest avenues for us to talk and communicate. And you see them advertised on Facebook, and stuff like that. And it's a somewhat new guy in our club, and he saw one. They were talking about a Huck Fest event somewhere, and he said, "Well, what is that?" And I tried to explain. I said, "Well, to me, it's primarily a 3D event, and
Oh, it's absolutely a
But,
3D event.
but I didn't really have a good answer for it.
I would say it's unorganized.
yeah,
It's
Come on, Casey.
No, I'm good.
it's it's a throwdown.
I like
Man,
that.
it's,
I like
It's
the
a
throwdown.
Yeah.
It's almost just a big barbecue.
So
Full send.
Full send. If
Let's-
you
let's
if you
get
destroy
back-
it, that's no big. That's
so
you're going
I-
to see some carnage.
I don't have any of this coming up, so I'm gonna go past it immediately. What's the dinner situations?
At our event,
Yeah, absolutely.
we have a food truck called Eats and Beats. A couple of ladies that have a food truck set up in Duncan regularly. They're going to come out. They're going to be selling lunch, dinner. It's my understanding they're going to be there from Thursday through Saturday.
It's hanging out,
Yep.
selling some grub.
Yeah,
Man,
they got
I don't even know if I need to take anything to cook.
yeah, they got hamburgers, hot dogs, tacos. Heck, they got all kinds of stuff. You can find them on Facebook at Eats and Beats Food Truck, I think is their page. Pretty simple.
Which, man, I'm going to get with you after this and send me all this stuff, and I'll make sure there's links in the show notes so everybody can check it out. Gosh damn it.
Oh, of course, Clint's got to make the mess.
Man.
Party's over.
Hey, you always got to have that one guy in the crowd, man, and Clint always brings it, bro.
Have we met?
Yep. I think I'm going to start calling him Huck Fest.
Goodness, a scale,
Guys,
he's
a
the,
scale guy with the Huckfest moniker.
That's it. Well, guys, we're going to cut it off right here, man. We appreciate you coming hanging
We
out.
sure appreciate you, Clay.
Yep. Come
Absolutely.
come check out Duncan. A lot of cool giveaways and stuff going on, man. And thanks again to
We'll
Clay.
talk to Clay again. He'll
Yep.
be back.
Oh, yeah.
So check out Redline Oil and Flex Innovations, man.
Absolutely.
You guys have a good one.
Bye.